Chapter 944. Above the void, the Hellfire Crucible appeared behind Yetion. The sky behind him directly spread into a sea of fire. The surrounding temperature rose rapidly. The air appeared to be in a dense state, as if it was about to be ignited. Humph humph. Wei Shuchan saw the Hellfire Crucible behind Yetion and felt a scorching heat assaulting his face. But he smiled coldly and said, "You want to rely on this flame pill cauldron to contend with me?" The heaven-shrouding barrier was broken. Wei Shuchan's strength recovered to the first-level Heavenly Emperor. He could use the true heaven and earth laws. He would not place Yetion in his eyes at all. Even though the Hellfire Crucible made him feel a slight oppressive aura, he absolutely would not believe that a mere fifth-level Deva martial artist could pose a threat to him. The difference in strength between the two was too great. This was a gap that no talent or martial technique could make up for. The crowd below was also stunned, not knowing what Yetion was doing. Luling Yun's figure stood several thousand meters away, looking at Yetion in fear. His forehead was covered in beads of sweat. The person Yetion was facing was a Heaven Realm martial artist, a genuine Heavenly Emperor realm powerhouse. In the Sumru world, it was an existence that crushed everything. Under such circumstances, Yetion did not retreat. It seemed like he wanted to continue fighting. In Luling Yun's view, this was simply crazy. Luling Yun was nervous to the extreme right now, because he knew that once Yetion died, the entire Sky Sword Pavilion would also be destroyed. Wei Shuchan said just now that not only did he want to kill Yetion, he would also kill everyone present. Heaven Realm martial artists looked down on Sumru world martial artists. These words were definitely not said for fun. "Yetion, you must hold on," Luling Yun prayed in his heart. But his expression was ugly to the extreme. Clearly, he did not believe Yetion. The Hellfire Crucible behind Yetion soared with terrifying flames. The scorching aura made people feel suffocated. He naturally knew that the current Hellfire Crucible could not contend with Heavenly Emperor realm martial artists. But the soul slave Niechio inside the Crucible had the strength to contend with Heavenly Emperor realm martial artists. Although using Niechio had a certain risk, Yetion had no choice but to use it. Die! Just at this moment, Wei Shuchan roared in rage. Her aura gushed forth as a gigantic water screen appeared in the sky. It was as though the Milky Way was crashing down. The immense aura was incomparably vast as it pressed down on Yetion. Yetion could feel the energy of laws circulating in the air, suppressing his elemental meridians. This was the terror of the power of laws. It had an absolute suppression on a martial artist's Yuan meridians. This brat is dead meat. When Zhang Yuan saw this scene, he actually let out a hysterical laugh. In his mind, he had already imagined the scene of Yetion being directly crushed. Yetion stood on the spot. His body was like a huge rock that didn't move at all. There wasn't the slightest ripple in his eyes, and it was so calm that it caused one's heart to palpitate. "Have you given up resisting?" When Wei Shuchan saw that Yetion did not move at all, she thought that the latter had given up resisting. She could not help but laugh maniacally, and her expression became ferocious. The gigantic water screen surged forth, and the cold, killing intent descended. At the moment of life and death, Yetion's eyes suddenly flickered. His body trembled, and a figure appeared from the hellfire furnace. It was the soul slave Niechio. "Kill him." Yetion's expression was ice-cold as he spoke. Niechio's eyes congealed. His entire body released a powerful flame. It was actually the Starry Sky Saint Flame. At the same time, it contained the power of the fire tribute laws. So, Niechio's figure shot out like an arrow, his entire body wrapped in the Starry Sky Saint Flame. He shot out and directly pierced through the gigantic water screen toward Wei Shuchan. Everything happened in the blink of an eye. Wei Shuchan did not even have the time to react. He only felt a scarlet-red flame flash past him, and his chest was pierced through, causing blood to spurt out. Feeling the unbearable pain in his chest, Wei Shuchan screamed out in pain. He had no idea what was happening. It's a heavenly emperor. At this time, Rinrinhang was the first to react. He pointed at Nietshio and exclaimed, "Who would have thought that a heavenly Emperor stage powerhouse would suddenly appear in Nietian's hellfire furnace? How is this possible?" Wei Shuchen's first reaction was that it was impossible. With a face of astonishment, the blazing figure once again attacked him. "Save me!" In shock, Wei Shuchen screamed out, but Zhang Yuan and Rinrinhang did not dare to go near him. They were so scared that their faces turned pale, white, and retreated. When Nietshio saw the scarlet red blood, his clear eyes suddenly became ruthless. His figure transformed into a flame and rushed forward. Voila! Wei Shuchen was unable to resist at all, and was instantly torn apart by Nietshio. His blood sprayed out like rain. A heavenly Emperor stage powerhouse died, just like that. Wei Shuchen would never have dreamt that he would actually lose his life in the Mount Shumi world. Before he died, his eyes were filled with unwillingness and fear. He truly died with everlasting regret. The scene in front of him caused Nietian to swallow a mouthful of saliva. He never thought that Nietshio's fighting strength would be so terrifying to be able to directly suppress an opponent of the same level. It was as though the power of the starry sky, Saint Flame, was unleashing a strange power on Nietshio's body. Woo! After killing Wei Shuchen, Nietshio released a low growl from his throat. He suddenly turned his head. His eyes were actually bloodshot, surging with a terrifying killing intent. Oh no! Nietian was startled. He immediately realized that something was wrong, and his face changed. Corpse Demon Lord and Sword Elder had warned him before. Nietshio's soul force was too strong and could not be erased. Once the ruthless chi in his body was stimulated, he would completely lose control. Nietshio was much stronger than Wei Shuchen, and if he truly lost control, it would be a calamity for the Mount Shumi world. Woo! Nietshio released another mournful cry. He stared coldly at Nietian, the ruthless chi in his eyes becoming denser and denser. "Nietian, you must definitely control him." The Sword Elder was also frightened and anxiously said, calm down, you must definitely calm down." Nietian's mind tensed up. He stared at Nietshio and slowly approached him. He was facing a homicidal maniac, and any movement from the opponent was enough to kill him. Nietian slowly approached, his eyes slowly releasing a gentle mental force, calming the latter's berserk state. Gradually, Nietian and Nietshio were only about 10 apart. Woo! Just at that moment, Nietshio released a strange cry. Like a frightened wild beast, he pounced towards Nietian. At such a close distance, Nietian's gaze darkened, and a powerful mental force was released, pressuring him. Nietshio's eyes turned sluggish. He stopped moving. The blood-red color in his eyes slowly retreated. Regaining clarity, he stood there blankly, like a child who did not know what to do. "Ooh!" Nietian heaved a sigh of relief. It was a close shave. "Go back," he said indifferently, and Nietshio's figure returned to the Hellfire Furnace. Chapter 945. Those two guys escaped. Nietian narrowed his eyes. He did not notice that Zhang Yuan and Rinihong had already escaped. Both of them were at the 9th level of the Heaven Realm, the pinnacle of the Shumi world. However, Zhang Yuan's arm was cut off by Nietian, and he was heavily injured. Rinihong seemed to be a sealer and was not very strong. It would not be easy for the two of them to stir up a huge storm in the Shumi world. "Nietian, your sword was infused with the power of the sword runes. That person will need at least a few months or even half a year to fully recover. Don't worry about them now," Sword Elder said with a frown. "I'm curious. Why would the Heaven Realm people come after you?" The Heaven Realm, Celestial Realm, was an upper world. To enter the Shumi world, one needed to pass through the planar restriction. The planar restriction above the Shumi world and the Heaven Realm's Divine Realm was far stronger than the planar restriction between the 3,000 small worlds and the Shumi world. If one wanted to pass through this kind of high-level planar restriction, they would need a rank 9 space-time teleportation spirit formation. Moreover, it was accompanied by great risks. The heaven realm, celestial realm people did not hesitate to take such a huge risk and even sent out a heavenly emperor assassin to kill Nyation. What enmity did Nyation have with these people that they would go to such great lengths to kill him? Sword Elder, these people are indeed after me, but I cannot tell you why now. Please forgive me. Nyation said sincerely. He was the reincarnation of the heaven realm's #1 war god. This was his biggest secret. Even Emo Rushi did not know about it. Only Rui Chinyu knew about it when she was in the bloody massacre ancient tomb. No one else knew about it. All right, Sword Elder was not angry. He just nodded. Everyone had their own secrets. Just like him, there were many things he did not tell Nyation. Boss, are you all right? At this time, Jean de Bayo walked over with a nervous expression. Nyation shook his head and smiled, indicating that he was fine. The situation just now was indeed very dangerous. If there had been the slightest mistake, Nyation wouldn't be able to speak happily at this moment. Luling Yun and the people from the Sky Sword Pavilion were dumbfounded. Their expressions were sluggish, and they couldn't react for a long time. The shock that Nyation gave them was too great. If not for them seeing it with their own eyes, who could believe that a heavenly Emperor Realm powerhouse was actually annihilated by Nyation in a twinkle? Luling Yun came back to his senses, his face covered in cold sweat. He came to Nyation's side, not even daring to look him in the eye, nor did he know what to say. Pavilion Master, I'll be leaving the Heaven Sword Pavilion soon. Please tell Jianshun on my behalf. Nyation did not beat around the bush and said directly. He had to leave the Sky Sword Pavilion immediately. Staying here would only bring danger to the people of the Sky Sword Pavilion. Although Wei Shuchen was dead, the other two were still alive. They would definitely not give up on this mission so easily. Yes, Mr. Nya. Luling Yun was respectful. He now only had respect for Nyation from the bottom of his heart. He had already placed the latter on the same level as the Sky Sword ancestor. Nyation nodded slightly, then came to Sun Hai's side. The latter was a little panicked and did not know how to face Nyation. Not long ago, Sun Hai treated Nyation as an equal, but now even Luling Yun was very respectful. He really did not know what to do. Nyation only smiled faintly, asked Sun Hai to take care of Jean de Bayo, and then took his leave. Nyation asked Jean de Bayo to stay in the Sky Sword Pavilion. If the latter followed him, it would only be more dangerous. After doing this, Nyation did not stay any longer. His figure moved, and he turned into a stream of light and disappeared. Luling Yun, Sun Hai, and the others stared at the place where Nyation disappeared. They were dumbfounded and only reacted after a long time. Sun Hai never thought that the youth from the 3,000 small worlds would actually grow to such a terrifying level in such a short time. After leaving the Sky Sword Pavilion, Nyation's figure sprinted towards the Black Moon Empire. Thinking about it, Nyation had already been in the Sumi world for several months. Emo Rushi and the others should have finished their seclusion. If they came to the Sumi world, they would definitely appear in the Black Moon Empire. Half a day later, at the Black Moon Empire's Mount Azure Dragon, whoosh, a figure shuttled through the dense forest. His speed was extremely fast, and he actually left behind several afterimages in the air. This figure was none other than Nyation. In just half a day, he arrived at the Black Moon Empire from the Sky Sword Pavilion. Nyation had already made up his mind. He would stay in the Black Moon Empire for half a month. If he did not see Emo Rushi and the others within half a month, he would make a trip back to the 3,000 small worlds. At this time, Nyation's figure froze, as if he had sensed something, and his brows furrowed inexplicably. At the same time, a few thousand meters away, a group of people appeared. There were about a dozen of them, and every one of them had an aura of the first level of the Heaven Realm. These people were full of hostility. Only people who had been fighting for a long time would have this kind of hostility. Among this group of people, the leader was a young man. His aura was not very strong, but he had a devilish face, and his eyes were releasing an inexplicable hostility. In the middle of this group of people, several figures were restrained by shackles, and their hands and feet were all wearing heavy shackles. That devilish young man looked at a restrained red-haired girl from time to time, and his eyes were burning with lust. If Nie Tian was here, he would be able to recognize this red-haired girl at a glance. She was none other than his fiancée, Mo Rushi, and the three people with Mo Rushi were Duanmulu, Guwuyo, and Xiaoshan. The four of them came to the Sumi world a few days ago. Originally, they wanted to go to the Sky Sword Pavilion to find Nie Tian, but not long ago, they were captured by this group of people. Miss Rushi, it's all my fault. I couldn't protect you. Behind Mo Rushi, Xiaoshan said with a face full of guilt. They were too strong. How can you be blamed? Mo Rushi forced a smile and comforted Xiaoshan. Miss Rushi, as long as you obey me, not only will I let you go, I will also provide you with the best cultivation resources, and the people around you will also receive the best treatment from me. What do you think? The devilish young man turned around and looked at Mo Rushi with a wretched smile. Shameless, Mo Rushi scolded, and didn't even look at him. Shameless. The devilish young man laughed instead of getting angry. He shouted arrogantly, "This king likes shamelessness. As long as we arrive at Mystic Moon City, this king will arrange everything, and you will see what true shamelessness is. This king will make you feel so good that you can't stop." Ha ha! Bastard! Duanmulu couldn't bear it anymore. He roared, and a terrifying killing intent appeared in his eyes. He threatened, "You pervert! If you dare to touch even half a finger of my master's wife, I will definitely kill you. You're courting death." The devilish young man's eyes darkened, and a poisonous glint shot out from his eyes. He waved his hand, and a sharp force flew out and attacked Duanmulu. This devilish young man's strength was at the 9th level of heavenly evolution, while Duanmulu's strength was only at the 1st level of heavenly evolution. This casual palm was enough to take the latter's life. Duanmulu, Mo Rushi, and the others screamed, and their faces instantly turned pale. Chapter 946. At the moment of life and death, Duanmulu suddenly sensed a powerful sword intent piercing through the air. His eyes trembled slightly as he suddenly felt that this sword intent was inexplicably familiar. A hint of joy appeared on his face as he shouted, "Teacher!" The sword intent was just right and easily blocked the ominous-looking young man's fatal blow. Immediately after, a figure descended, releasing a towering rage all over his body. The overflowing killing intent spread out for thousands of meters, and the surrounding spirit beasts immediately scattered in fright. Nie Tian, Mr. Nie, Mr. Mo Rushi, Guwuyo, and Xiaoshan's voices sounded almost at the same time. Rushi. When Nie Tian saw that Mo Rushi was shackled with shackles on her hands and feet, his body trembled violently, and a force flew out through the air. Crack! With a crisp sound, the shackles on Mo Rushi's body were directly broken. Crack! Crack! Almost at the same time, another 3 crisp sounds rang out, and the shackles on Duanmulu and the other 2 were also broken. What a powerful aura! When the surrounding people saw this scene, their hearts inexplicably trembled. The shackles were reinforced by a 5th-order spiritual array, and Nie Tian broke the shackles without moving at all. His strength was unimaginable. Nie Tian, Mo Rushi, cried tears of joy and threw herself into Nie Tian's arms. She could no longer suppress the grievances in her heart, and hot tears flowed out like a fountain. Feeling the trembling of the girl in his arms, Nie Tian's eyes shot out terrifying flames of anger. Mo Rushi was his woman. If someone made Mo Rushi cry, he would make that person bleed and spare his life. "You whore, you!" The ominous-looking young man looked at the silver-haired young man in front of him with a face full of horror, and his voice was filled with unconcealable trembling. "The person who will kill you," Nie Tianling said coldly. He did not care who the other party was, he must die. "Kill me?" The devilish young man was taken aback as great fear flashed across his eyes. However, he soon calmed down and said, "I am Lai Chong, the 3rd prince of the Scorching Sun Empire. If you dare to kill me, the Scorching Sun Empire will never let you off." "The Scorching Sun Empire?" Nie Tianling smiled coldly. The corners of his mouth curled into a strange arc, and the killing intent in his eyes became even sharper. The Blazing Sun Empire and the Dark Moon Empire were both first-rate forces in the Shumi world. If the person standing in front of Lai Chong was someone else, bringing up the name of the Blazing Sun Empire might be of some use. Unfortunately, the person in front of him was Nie Tian. Putting aside the fact that this person was a prince of the Blazing Sun Empire, even if he was the emperor of the Blazing Sun Empire, he would still die. Protect His Highness. The people of the Scorching Sun Empire sensed Nie Tian's murderous intent and immediately roared in unison. Killing intent surged from all over their bodies, protecting Lai Chong like a shield. These people were the most brutal warriors, and they had killed countless people. At this moment, their auras merged together, and an enormous killing intent spread out, as if an invisible giant hand was pressing down. Mo Rushi and the others could not withstand this enormous killing intent, and they all retreated, their faces flushed and their breathing ragged. Nie Tian. Mo Rushi's pretty face was pale, and she pulled Nie Tian. Clearly, she was terrified. I'm fine. Nie Tian looked at Mo Rushi and nodded slightly, his eyes filled with domineering confidence. Mo Rushi looked at Nie Tian, and her heart instantly calmed down. She nodded heavily. At this moment, Mo Rushi felt that as long as this man was by her side, no one would ever be able to hurt her. Boom! Nie Tian took a step forward, and sword intent burst out from all over his body. The void instantly trembled, and the killing intent in the air was directly shattered by him. These people were all at the first level of the sky, human realm. When dozens of them worked together, it was extremely terrifying. However, in front of Nie Tian, they could only be considered as dregs. In fact, they couldn't even be considered as dregs. The dozens of warriors were taken aback, and then their eyes darkened. The killing intent in their bodies became even more intense, and everyone's aura was released. It actually linked together, and the powerful aura was terrifying. Kill that silver-haired brat. Kill him for this king. At this time, Lai Chong screamed crazily. Kill! Dozens of warriors roared in unison, and their voices were like thunder. Their surging aura blasted out, and the invisible aura pressed down with earth-shattering momentum. These people were all desperados on a battlefield, and they had experienced countless life and death situations. At this time, they would not show any mercy. Nie Tian's eyes narrowed slightly, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. Although these people's methods were brutal, and their aura was fierce, they could not stop his sword. 8 Desolation Sword. A cold roar sounded, and Nie Tian was fearless. The long sword in his hand stabbed out, and accompanied by a thunderous explosion, the surging sword intent turned into countless sword lights, tearing everything apart. Boom! A dull sound rang out, and the sword shadows shattered everything, leaving only the most violent sword intent in the air. In an instant, countless screams rang out, and a glaring rain of blood floated in the air. Figures instantly fell to the ground dead. One sword, just one sword, and Nie Tian killed dozens of Heaven Realm warriors with one sword. Lai Chang's eyes widened, and his originally arrogant face became completely lifeless. His face was filled with deep fear. The bloody and glaring scene in front of him was like a bolt of lightning, completely stunning him, and even his breathing seemed to stop. Dozens of Heaven Realm warriors died, just like that. Lai Chong could not believe the scene in front of him. The other party was only a young warrior in his 20s, so how could he have such terrifying power? And it seemed that this silver-haired warrior had only casually used one sword, and did not use his full strength. Just how terrifying was the person in front of him? Not only Lai Chong, but Mo Rushi and the other two were also completely stunned. Their mouths were wide open, but they could not make a sound. Originally, they had been worried about Nie Tian, but now that they thought about it, it was really unnecessary. After not seeing him for a few months, Nie Tian's strength had already grown to a level that they could not imagine. You, who are you? Lai Chang's tongue began to spin, and his teeth began to tremble. I said before, I am the person who will kill you, Nye Tianling said coldly, and the killing intent in his eyes was suffocating. Lai Chong felt as if he had been struck by lightning. His body trembled, and his face was as pale as paper. He was so scared that he could not speak. Plop! In the next instant, Lai Chong could no longer bear the fear of death. His knees weakened, and he knelt on the ground, begging, I beg you, don't kill me. I am the third prince of the Blazing Sun Empire, and my elder brother is one of the 3 kings. As long as you let me go, I will give you whatever you want. Nye Tian's expression was as cold as ice. Other than killing intent in his eyes, there was not the slightest hint of mercy. One of the 3 kings? The corner of Nye Tian's mouth twitched, and there was a hint of playfulness in his eyes as he said, Even if your elder brother is a 4 Peaks Meru, you still have to die. When the cold word die was uttered, Lai Chang's small face stiffened, and he could not say another word. Swoosh! Right at this moment, a sword intent swept past, stirring up a streak of blood. Lai Chang's entire body suddenly trembled, and all the vitality in his body was extinguished, and he fell to the ground dead. At the moment of his death, Lai Chang's eyes were filled with thick fear. Clearly, he did not even know how he died. Chapter 9:47. After killing Lai Chang, Nye Tian's gaze was calm, and the murderous intent in his eyes gradually disappeared. Mo Rushi and the others were completely stunned as they looked at the bloody corpses all over the ground. They simply could not imagine that Nye Tian's strength was actually so terrifying. Lai Chang was at the 9th level of the Heavenly Evolution Realm, and those dozens of martial artists were all Celestial Realm powerhouses, but they were all killed by Nye Tian in the blink of an eye. Just how terrifying was Nye Tian's strength? Rushi, are you all right? Nye Tian turned around and went to Mo Rushi's side. He was only relieved after confirming that the latter was fine. If anything happened to Mo Rushi and the others, Nye Tian would definitely destroy the Blazing Sun Empire. Teacher, Duanmu Lu walked over. He had already regained his composure, but his eyes were filled with guilt. He said apologetically, This disciple was unable to protect Master's wife. Please punish me, teacher. Nye Tian helped Duanmu Lu up and said with a faint smile, This matter has nothing to do with you. Your strength is limited. It's time for you to increase your strength. With that, a ball of light appeared in Nye Tian's hand and floated to Duanmu Lu's side. This is an ancient sword intent inheritance that I obtained by accident. It's very suitable for you. The moment the ball of light appeared, the surrounding space was enveloped by a majestic sword intent. Even the air seemed to have stopped. This sword intent inheritance was obtained by Nye Tian from the Iron Sword Demon King in the forbidden land of Wind and Cloud. The Iron Sword Demon King was an ancient swordsman. His sword intent was very terrifying and vast, and it was very compatible with Duanmu Lu's 8 extreme sword intent. Duanmu Lu felt the terror of the sword intent. His throat moved, and he said excitedly, Thank you, teacher. Nye Tian smiled faintly and asked Duanmu Lu to put away the sword intent. He looked at Xiu Shan, who had many wounds on his body. It was obvious that he had struggled with all his might. Xiu Shan was currently the strongest among the 4 of them. He was at the 2nd level of the Heavenly Evolution Realm. Mo Rushi and the other 2 were all at the 1st level of the Heavenly Evolution Realm. They had only been in the Sumi world for a few days, and it was already not easy for them to reach the Heavenly Evolution Realm. Teacher, Xiu Shan said in a deep voice. He also felt somewhat guilty. It's good that you're fine. Nye Tian smiled faintly, but the corners of his mouth curled up into a cold smile. Lai Chang was the 3rd prince of the Blazing Sun Empire. He had captured Mo Rushi and the others, and now he was killed by Nye Tian. However, this matter was not over yet. The Blazing Sun Empire would also have to pay the price. Nye Tian came to Lai Chang's side. With a wave of his arm, an interspatial ring appeared on his hand. He sensed that there were many spirit pills and crystals in the ring, but he was not interested in any of them. What interested him the most was a map. Nye Tian unfolded the map. He was stunned when he saw it, but his lips curled into a smile. He murmured, I annihilated the heavenly demon cult, but you want to divide the Black Moon Empire. How can there be such a good thing in this world? The map in his hand was the map of the Black Moon Empire, but it had been divided into several regions. They were labeled Blazing Sun Empire, Absolute Heaven Sect, Konoha Empire, Alchemist's Guild, Blacksmith's Guild, and so on. It was obvious that these forces had already discussed to divide the Black Moon Empire. What surprised Nyation was that the Sky Sword Pavilion did not have a share on it. The Heavenly Demon Cult was annihilated by the Sky Sword Pavilion. Moreover, the Sky Sword Pavilion's strength was not weaker than the other forces. Logically, the Sky Sword Pavilion should have a share. What made Nyation even more curious was that there was an unknown area on the map that didn't belong to anyone. This area took up more than half of the Black Moon continent. He didn't know what kind of power was able to divide up such a large area. In that case, I will go to the Black Moon Imperial City to join in the fun. Nyation kept the map and passed all the spirit pills and crystals to Chioshan. Those spirit pills were useless to him, but to Chioshan and the others, it was helpful for their cultivation. After all, their strength was very low. Nyation did not stay any longer and headed straight for the Black Moon Imperial City. At the same time, in the Palace Hall of the Black Moon Imperial City, two figures sat in the middle of the Palace Hall. Their faces were calm, and they had a faint smile on their faces. They were sipping tea carefully, and their eyeballs kept moving, as if they were thinking about something. These two people were none other than the former Black Moon Empire Alchemist Guild President, Jiaguang, and the Blacksmiths Guild President, Huijia. The Heavenly Demon Cult destroyed the two guilds' forces in the Black Moon Empire, but these two people successfully escaped. Now, they were making a comeback, but the Heavenly Demon Cult had been annihilated in the Sky Sword Pavilion. At this moment, they were planning to divide the Black Moon Empire. Below Huijia and Jiaguang sat four other people. They were the Heaven-Severing Sect's Vice Sect leader Chen Haoyu, the Blazing Sun Empire's Crown Prince Lai Wu, the Woodleaf Empire's Great General Mu Tieba, and a masked man in black. These people looked relaxed. The various forces had already coordinated. Next, everyone just needed to nod and sign, and the Black Moon Empire would be completely divided. Everyone, the Black Moon Empire will be divided according to the map. Does anyone have any objections? Jiaguang took a sip of tea and said with a faint smile, "No problem." The people below him nodded in unison, expressing their agreement. Since no one has any objections, let's sign. Jiaguang nodded and gestured to Huijia. The latter took out a contract scroll. As long as everyone imprinted their mental power on the contract scroll, the contract would come into effect. Chen Haoyu, Lai Wu, Mu Tieba, and the man in black stood up and prepared to sign the contract scroll. Bang! At this moment, a muffled sound suddenly rang out. A figure flew out and directly smashed into the stone pillar above the main hall, causing the entire hall to tremble. Everyone was stunned. A guard of the main hall was actually injured by someone. The guard did not die. He struggled to stand up and open his mouth, but no words came out. Who is so daring to cause trouble here? Mu Tieba was the most impulsive. With a roar, he released the strength of a fifth-level heaven human martial artist. A vast aura surged out of the main hall. Boom! In the next instant, the void suddenly shook violently. An even more violent aura pressed down. Mu Tieba's aura could not withstand the other party's pressure and directly collapsed. Mu Tieba stumbled a few steps back and fell on his butt. His face was as red as a monkey's butt, and there was no need to mention how unsightly it was. Such a powerful aura. Jiaguang, Huijia, and the others were all stunned. Their eyes trembled. The newcomer directly used his aura to force Mu Tieba back. His strength was unfathomable. Courting death, Lai Wu, the crown prince of the Scorching Sun Empire, frowned. Just as he was about to explode in anger, he was stopped by Huijia. Huijia felt an unusually familiar aura, but his brows were tightly knitted. He did not dare to believe his own senses. Instead, he shouted, "Who are you? Can you show yourself?" "Old man Hua, don't you recognize your old friend?" In the next moment, a mocking voice rang out in the void. Shortly after, a silver-haired figure appeared. He was like a sharp sword, releasing a sharp aura. Chapter 948. A figure suddenly appeared in the palace hall of the Dark Moon Empire. Everyone was stunned as they stared at the newcomer in astonishment. "It's really you." Huijia rubbed his eyes as if he couldn't believe it. In fact, he had already sensed that it was Nie Tian's aura earlier, but he couldn't believe it because the newcomer's aura was too strong. It was on a completely different level from the Nie Tian he knew. Now that Nie Tian's figure appeared, he had no choice but to accept the truth. The newcomer was really Nie Tian, but this was too exaggerated. In just a few months, Nie Tian's strength had skyrocketed to such a terrifying level. When Nie Tian left the Dark Moon Empire, he was only at the 9th level of the Sky Evolution Realm. Now, in just 3 months, he was already at the 5th level of the Sky Human Realm. This speed could only be described as shocking. Nie Tian. At this time, Jia Guang also recognized Nie Tian. His reaction was even more exaggerated. His eyes widened, and he almost stopped breathing. He couldn't believe the scene in front of him. He didn't expect that Nie Tian would really come out of the forbidden land of wind and cloud. He also didn't expect that Nie Tian's strength would skyrocket to such a terrifying level. Moreover, he appeared in the palace hall of the Dark Moon Empire. The few of them looked at Nie Tian in fear, not knowing his purpose in coming here. "Brother Nie Tian." Finally, it was Huijia who broke the silence. He laughed heartily and said, "I heard that you passed the path of sealed swords of Sky Sword Pavilion. Is that true?" "Yeah," Nie Tian answered indifferently, his face as calm as ever. No one could tell if he was happy or sad. The path of sealed swords of Sky Sword Pavilion was very famous in the entire Shumi world. For thousands of years, countless swordsmen had their sword hearts sealed by the path of sealed swords. The fact that Nie Tian could pass the path of sealed swords naturally shocked the entire Shumi world. Previously, Huijia had some doubts and thought it was just a rumor. But now, it seemed that everything was true. He had even heard that Nie Tian had once defeated the Heaven Sword Pavilion Master with a single sword strike. He did not believe it before, but now he was absolutely certain. Just now, Nie Tian had used his aura to repel Muqieba. His method was too ruthless, and it was enough to intimidate everyone. "Brother Nie, why have you come to the Black Moon Empire?" Fire Armor glanced at the guard beside him and asked with an awkward smile. "Elder Hua, I'm not here to target you." Nie Tian's eyes flickered, and he cut to the chase. The Black Moon Empire was destroyed by the Heavenly Demon Cult, and the Heavenly Demon Cult was destroyed by the Heaven Sword Pavilion. When the Black Moon Empire was destroyed, the other forces did not appear. Now that the Heavenly Demon Cult has been destroyed, do they all want a piece of the pie? Jia's face stiffened, and he said, "Nie Tian, actually, we've already informed Pavilion Master Liling Yun, but Sky Sword Pavilion doesn't want to get involved," so Nie Tian's eyes narrowed. He did not think that Liling Yun would give up on the benefits that were already in his hands. However, on second thought, everyone in Sky Sword Pavilion was a swordsman, and they indeed should not get involved in worldly conflicts. "I want what Pavilion Master Lu doesn't want." Nie Tian frowned and said, "What do you mean?" Muqieba took a step forward, his face full of anger. Just now, he had been forced back by Nie Tian, and he had lost quite a bit of face. Now that he heard Nie Tian also wanted to get involved, he could no longer hold back and roared, "You are just one person, and you have no backing. What right do you have to stand shoulder to shoulder with us?" Muqieba's face was full of anger, and his eyes were filled with malice. He was right. The people present did not represent themselves, but the forces behind them. Nie Tian was just one person. Did he really think he could contend with a first-rate force? Based on what? The corner of Nie Tian's mouth curled up, and he laughed instead. "Based on the fact that I killed Yu Rushuang. Is that enough? You killed Yu Rushuang?" As soon as Nie Tian's voice fell, everyone present was stunned. At this time, Mo Rushi and the others also appeared in the hall. Seeing Nie Tian's domineering attitude, they did not say anything. Although they did not know who Yu Rushuang was, to be able to make these people so surprised, she had to be an extraordinary person. The atmosphere in the hall was silent for a few seconds, and then a burst of insolent laughter suddenly rang out. A brat in the 5th level of the celestial human realm killed the heavenly devil cult master. This is the funniest joke I've ever heard. Ha ha! The ear-piercing laughter rang out in the hall. That person's face was full of disdain, and he completely treated Nyetion's words as a joke. Nyetion's gaze darkened as he looked at the person laughing. It was the vice sect master of the heaven-severing sect, Chun Haoyu. I heard that you Rushuang was a martial artist in the 8th level of the celestial human realm. Only a 4th peak Sumeru could suppress her. How did you kill her? Another voice rang out. Lai Wu's face was full of disdain, clearly not believing Nyetion's words. Arrogant brat, Yu Rushuang clearly died at the hands of the heavenly sword patriarch. What does that have to do with you? Mu Chieba laughed arrogantly, his face full of disdain. However, Huijia and Jiaguang looked at each other but did not say anything. They had a feeling that Nyetion was speaking the truth. Thinking back, Nyetion had been able to fight against Mo Baiming, who was in the 5th level of the celestial human realm. Now that he was in the 5th level of the celestial human realm, it was not strange that he could kill Yu Rushuang, who was in the 8th level of the celestial human realm. Yu Rushuang had not died at the hands of Nyetion, but it had a lot to do with him. If he hadn't forced Yu Rushuang into a desperate situation, how could Lin Feng have had the chance to kill her in one blow? Moreover, in Nyetion's eyes, Yu Rushuang was nothing. He had even killed a heavenly emperor not long ago. Are you done laughing? Nyetion's face was calm as he suddenly turned to look at Chun Haoyu. His eyes flashed with killing intent as he spoke coldly. What do you want? Chun Haoyu's face turned pale as he was enveloped by the killing intent. The corner of Nyetion's mouth twitched into a cold smile. He said playfully, Chun Haoyu, should I still call you Vice Sect Master Chun or King of the Westyu? His calm voice caused everyone to be stunned, staring at Chun Haoyu in astonishment. What do you mean? Chun Haoyu's eyes trembled violently, his lips already starting to tremble. You know very well what I mean. Nyetion's face was calm, but his eyes were filled with intense, killing intent. He said coldly, Chun Haoyu, now that the heavenly demon cult is gone, you think that no one knows your identity anymore, so you can still be the vice sect master of the heaven-severing sect? What are you talking about? I don't understand. Sweat beaded on Chun Haoyu's forehead, and his eyes were filled with despair. He had never imagined that Nyetion would know his true identity. In fact, not only did Nyetion know Chun Haoyu's identity, but he had also seen him in the Sword Pagoda of Sky Sword Pavilion. You don't understand? Nyetion retorted. A cold light suddenly flashed in his eyes as he said coldly, If you don't understand, then die. As his cold voice fell, a sword intent shot out, slicing Chun Haoyu's throat. Chapter 949. Nyetion's sword intent sealed his throat, and Chun Haoyu died on the spot. The scene fell into a deathly silence as everyone stared dumbfoundedly at the corpse on the ground. No one would have thought that Nyetion would be so tyrannical, actually killing on the spot. Every single person here represented a first-rate force. Nyetion directly said that Chun Haoyu was the heavenly demon cult's king of the Westyu, and while the latter was still trying to defend himself, he had already become a corpse. No matter what, Chun Haoyu was the heaven-severing sect's vice sect master. Was Nyetion not afraid of the heaven-severing sect's revenge? However, they did not know that Nyetion did not put the heaven-severing sect in his eyes at all. If the heaven-severing sect's sect master was really blind, he did not mind erasing the heaven-severing sect from the Shumi world. Nyetion, you killed Vice Sect Master Chun? Jiaguang was stunned for a long time before he finally reacted, his face full of astonishment. So be it. There's nothing to be surprised about. Nyetion smiled faintly and said, Now can we talk about how to divide the Black Moon Empire? Yes, we can. Jiaguang was stunned for a moment, then nodded almost subconsciously. Nyetion was too domineering. If he was not given a share, he would most likely kill everyone here. What about you guys? Nyetion's gaze swept across Mu Tieba and the others. They felt their hearts tremble and they all agreed woodenly. Mu Tieba had seen many experts, but none of them had a gaze as fierce as Nietion's. This guy is too terrifying. We cannot offend him, Mu Tieba said in his heart. Lai Wu and the black-clothed man both nodded, indicating that they agreed to Nietion's intervention. Nietion's gaze stopped on the masked, black-clothed man for a moment, and he was slightly stunned before returning to normal. Since the people of the Heaven-Severing sect are already dead, how about we give a land that originally belonged to the Heaven-Severing sect to Lord Nietion? Lai Wu pointed at the map and was the first to speak. I have no objections, Mu Tieba chuckled, indicating his agreement. The man in black nodded. However, Huijia and Jiaguang looked at each other and did not say anything. They understood Nietion very well, and they knew that with his personality, he would definitely not just want that small piece of land. Lord Nietion, what do you think? Lai Wu's eyes flickered as he looked at Nietion. His tone was respectful. Nietion didn't say anything. His eyes were fixed on the map. This Lai Wu was very shrewd. He directly gave the territory that was originally given to the Heaven-Severing sect to Nietion. This way, the other factions would not suffer any losses, and the Heaven-Severing sect would only seek revenge on Nietion in the future. However, Lai Wu's plan was good. It was a pity that he had found the wrong person. Nietion was not a person who would be satisfied with just a place. Since he had gone through so much trouble to get here and offended so many forces, he naturally had to demand an exorbitant price. Here, and here. I want all of these places. The corner of Nietion's mouth twitched. He pointed at the map and demanded the Heaven-Severing sect, the Blazing Sun Empire, the Konoha Empire, and that unmarked area. On the map, he only left a few places for the Alchemist Guild and the Equipment Crafting Association. The rest of the places were all taken. Lai Wu and the others were stunned. They stared at Nietion in astonishment. Their expressions seemed to be saying, "Are you crazy?" Nietion wanted to take all the places other than the two major guilds as soon as he opened his mouth. This was simply insane, opening his mouth so wide. Was he not afraid of choking? Huijia and Jiaguang were stunned. They knew that Nietion would demand an exorbitant price, but they never imagined that it would be so big. Forget about the people from the Heaven-Severing sect. After all, Chun Haoyu was already dead. However, the people from the Konoha Empire, the Blazing Sun Empire, and the Black Robe Man in front of them, how could they tolerate Nietion doing this? Actually, according to Nietion's original plan, he intended to take over the entire Black Moon Empire. However, the Alchemist Guild and the Equipment Crafting Association had also paid a certain price. Moreover, he had a good relationship with Hua Jiaguang, so he could not swallow the territories of the two major guilds. Elder Hua, Elder Jia, what do you two think of my proposal? Nietion smiled faintly and stared straight at Hua Jiaguang. The two of them swallowed their saliva, but did not answer. Instead, they looked at the masked black-robed man at the same time. Impossible! At this time, Mu Tieba roared and shouted, "Are you crazy? Why don't you swallow the entire Black Moon Empire?" You don't agree? Nietion turned around and looked at Mu Tieba. His eyes were filled with coldness, and a sharp, killing intent enveloped him. Mu Tieba immediately felt a chill, as if he had fallen into an ice cellar. His whole body trembled inexplicably, and he staggered, almost falling down. He could clearly feel the killing intent from Nietion. If he said no, Nietion would definitely kill him without hesitation. Mu Tieba's face was as pale as paper. He subconsciously looked at the black-robed man, not daring to speak. "If you don't speak, I'll take it that you agree." Nietion smiled faintly and turned to look at Lai Wu. He said directly, "You better agree immediately. Otherwise, I will make you suffer the same fate as the owner of this ring." As he spoke, a ring appeared in Nietion's palm. On it was engraved the word Lai. "Huh?" Lai Wu was stunned and immediately cried out, "This is my third brother's ring. Why is it in your hands?" The ring on Nietion's hand was obtained from Lai Chong. Lai Chong had once said that his big brother was one of the three kings. Nietion guessed that the Lai Wu in front of him was the big brother that Lai Chong had mentioned. Lai Wu looked to be around 30 years old, and his strength was actually of the fifth heaven realm. This talent was indeed not bad. Lin Feng was also one of the three kings and had the same strength as Lai Wu. However, he was younger than Lai Wu, so his talent was slightly higher. I killed him, Nie Tian said indifferently. His expression didn't change at all. You killed him? Lai Wu frowned. His whole body was filled with anger, and his eyes were also filled with coldness. Nie Tian didn't explain anything. In any case, Lai Wu wouldn't listen. He directly said, You are not my opponent. If you want to take revenge, you will only die in vain. This time, Nie Tian wanted to be strong to the end. If Lai Wu insisted on taking revenge, he absolutely wouldn't be lenient. Stinking brat, you're too insolent, Lai Wu roared. His whole body was trembling. His killing intent rose, and he suddenly attacked. A terrifying, raging fire intent bloomed in the air. A flaming palm smashed towards Nie Tian. Courting death, Nie Tianling said coldly. His eyes became cold in an instant, and he directly punched out. Boom! The void suddenly shook. A tyrannical yuan qi surged out, and a golden fish shadow appeared in the air. Boom! The fist and the palm collided. A muffled sound rang out. The power of the golden fist shadow exploded. It was like a gale sweeping away fallen leaves. The flaming palm was forcibly torn apart. Ah! A mournful scream sounded. Lai Wu's whole body flew out and collided into a huge stone pillar behind him. He actually smashed in. Chapter 950. In the main hall, everyone looked at Nie Tian in a daze, holding their breaths. Shock. Indescribable shock. The scene just now was too strange. No one saw clearly what was going on. Nie Tian and Lai Wu were both at the fifth level of heaven-human realm, but the two of them fought, and victory was decided in one move. Lai Wu, a monstrous genius of the spatial world's three kings level, lost miserably in the hands of Nie Tian in just one move. In that move, just now, Lai Wu attacked abruptly and already had the upper hand. But even so, he was still sent flying by Nie Tian's punch. Nie Tian attacked in haste and did not use his full strength at all. If he used his full strength, Lai Wu's outcome would definitely be a corpse. After a long time, the stone pillar that was almost smashed through shook. A bloody figure crawled out, struggling with his last breath, and finally stood up. Everyone looked at the battered Lai Wu. Their eyes could not help but tremble. Nie Tian was too strong, exceeding everyone's expectations. Do you agree now? Nie Tian looked at the bloody Lai Wu and asked coldly. Although this person was one of the three kings, his strength was far below Lin Feng's. He was even weaker than Nan Gong Ba, one of the six evils. From this, it could be seen that even among the famous geniuses of the spatial world, there were many people who were just there to make up the numbers. Lai Wu's body swayed, his mouth opened wide, but he could not speak. If you don't speak, then I'll take it as you agree. Nie Tian smiled faintly, his eyes revealing strong confidence. At this time, his figure turned slightly, and his gaze landed on that black-clothed man. Seeing that Nie Tian seemed to be about to speak to that black-clothed man, Hu Jia and Jia Guang's expressions suddenly changed, and they hurriedly waved their hands, indicating that Nie Tian should not provoke this person. But Nie Tian pretended not to see it, and his eyes carried a trace of playfulness as he said, You haven't spoken yet. Are you also tacitly agreeing to my suggestion? On the Black Moon Empire's map, there was an unmarked region that occupied more than half of Black Moon. It was obvious that this area belonged to the faction represented by the black-clothed man in front of them. To be able to conquer more than half of the Black Moon Empire, the power behind this black-clothed man was extremely terrifying. It was definitely not inferior to the two large guilds. The black-clothed man's gaze trembled slightly. His entire face was covered by the mask, but his expression was clearly seen by Nie Tian. Nie Tian possessed the starry sky eyes. A mere mask could not block his vision. That person's face trembled, and he finally opened his mouth. His voice was very ear-piercing, like the sound of iron tools rubbing against each other. Brat, do you know who I am? I don't know what your name is, Nie Tian said with a faint smile. his face as calm as ever. "But I know your surname is Qianlong, right?" His tone was calm, but at the same time, there was a hint of mockery. In fact, from a moment Nie Tian entered the hall, he had already noticed the man in black and had already guessed his identity. He could sense the bloodline power from the black-clothed man, and it was a bloodline power that he was very familiar with. Divine Prison Black Flames. Divine Prison Black Flames was the bloodline power of the Qianlong family. Nie Tian had seen this power from Qianlong Inghong and Qianlong Ingzheng. Nie Tian did not expect that someone from the Qianlong family would also appear here. The region on the Black Moon Empire's map was actually the Holy Light Empire's territory. No wonder the other factions did not dare to object. Nie Tian's guess was right. The black-clothed man was from the Qianlong family. Furthermore, this black-clothed man had a very high status. He was a younger brother of the current emperor of the Holy Light Empire, Qianlong Bo. Qianlong Bo's eyes narrowed slightly. He could not help but be surprised. He did not expect that Nie Tian would still dare to be so impudent despite knowing his identity. "Brat, you should know when to stop. This king has no objections to you taking over the territory of the Heaven-Severing sect and the other two families. However, you cannot take over the region on the map," Qianlong Bo said coldly with a strong pressure in his voice. "That's because it belongs to the Qianlong family." The name Qianlong represented absolute authority in the Holy Light domain. No one dared to challenge this authority. Huijia and Jiaguang became nervous when they sensed Qianlong Bo's anger. Qianlong Bo was completely different from Lai Wu and the rest. The Holy Light Empire behind him was the strongest faction in the entire Shumi world. Huijia signaled to Nie Tian with his eyes, hoping that he would take a step back. It was already very good for him to take over the territory of the Heaven-Severing sect and the other two families. However, Nie Tian still pretended not to see it. The playful smile on his face deepened. "Is that so?" Nie Tian looked at Qianlong Bo and said in a deep voice, "What if I insist?" Qianlong Bo's face sank. The anger in his eyes suddenly turned into killing intent. He said coldly, "Brat, the Qianlong family is not something you can afford to offend. There's only one outcome for provoking the Qianlong family: death. Can you afford this price?" His voice was low and deep, filled with a thick threat. "Qianlong family? Holy Light Empire?" Yet Tianling sneered with a hint of disdain in his eyes. Where were the people of the Holy Light Empire when the Black Moon Empire was annihilated by the Heavenly Demon Cult? Where were the people of the Holy Light Empire when the people of the Black Moon Empire were massacred? When the Black Moon Empire needed the Holy Light Empire the most, you guys didn't appear. Now that the Heavenly Demon Cult has been annihilated, you guys have appeared. A random masked man wants to take away half of the Black Moon Empire? How can there be such a good thing in this world? Every single word was forceful and resounding like a clap of thunder in the Great Hall. Huijia and Jiaguang's eyes trembled. They didn't expect Nie Tian to be so domineering in the face of the Qianlong family. "Brat, you're courting death." Qianlong Bo's eyes darkened. He let out a furious roar, and his killing intent surged. A terrifying aura was released and filled the entire hall. Huijia and the rest felt a powerful pressure. Their eyes trembled, and they quickly retreated. "Seventh-level heaven-human realm?" Nie Tianling sneered. Instead of retreating, he advanced. The void shook violently, and the two auras collided. A visible shockwave spread out. Qianlong Bo felt a vast force pressing down on him. His body swayed, and he was actually forced to take a few steps back. On the other hand, Nie Tian was as steady as a boulder and as unmoving as a bell. In the clash of their auras, Qianlong Bo was actually quite a bit inferior. Nie Tian, Huijia, and Jiaguang were both stunned. The aura surging out from Nie Tian was even stronger than Qianlong Bo's. It was terrifying. How is this possible? Qianlong Bo stabilized his body. His face was slightly flushed, and the shock in his heart was written all over his face. He was a 7th-level heaven-human realm cultivator and had a powerful bloodline power. How could he lose to Nie Tian, who was only a 5th-level heaven-human realm cultivator in terms of aura? Nothing is impossible. Nie Tianling sneered and took a step forward. The aura around him became even stronger. Qianlongbo felt as if there was an invisible sword stabbing at him. His breathing became hurried. Chapter 9:51. Now, do you agree? Nie Tian's words were like a death knell, echoing throughout the hall. Qianlongbo's body trembled slightly, and his eyes revealed a hint of fear. He could feel that Nie Tian's killing intent was definitely not a bluff. If he dared to refuse, Nie Tian would definitely kill him. Nie Tian, do you really want to become enemies with the Holy Light Dynasty? Qianlongbo calmed himself down and told himself that he could not show weakness at this moment. Right now, he was not only representing himself, but also the entire Holy Light Dynasty. The people from the two major guilds and several first-rate forces were watching from the sidelines. If he backed down, what would they think of him? This would greatly damage the authority of the entire Holy Light Dynasty. It was simply a joke for the mighty Holy Light Dynasty to be afraid of a fifth-tier celestial warrior. Humph! The corner of Nie Tian's mouth twitched, and a strange smile appeared on his face. You should go back and ask the Holy Light Ancestor if he's willing to become enemies with me. There was still a battle between Nie Tian and the Holy Light Ancestor. It seemed that the Holy Light Ancestor had not made it public, so no one else knew about it. If Qianlongbo knew about this, he would probably have a different attitude towards Nie Tian. Qianlongbo's eyes narrowed. Nie Tian had actually mentioned the Holy Light Ancestor in front of everyone, and there was not the slightest respect in his tone. Instead, there was a hint of threat. This was intolerable. Brat, I'd like to see what ability you have to dare to provoke the Qianlong royalty. Qianlongbo was enraged, and his killing intent surged. Black flames rose from his back, and a chilling aura immediately spread in the air. Divine prison black flames. Huijia and Jia Guang exclaimed at the same time when they saw the black flames behind Qianlongbo. It was rumored that the Qianlong family's bloodline power was extremely powerful, and Qianlongbo was one of the top experts in the Qianlong family. Could Nie Tian be his match? Bloodline power? Nie Tian's expression remained calm, without a trace of fear. He smiled and said, I wonder how your bloodline is compared to Qianlong's. You know the Crown Prince? Qianlongbo was startled. He didn't expect Nie Tian to know about Qianlong. Huijia and Jia Guang were also taken aback. Looking at Nie Tian's expression, it seemed like he did not take Qianlong Yingjing seriously. With Nie Tian's current strength, there was indeed no need for him to fear Qianlong. The latter was merely the leader of the 9 demons, while Nie Tian had just defeated Lai Wu, one of the 3 kings, with a single move. A hint of disdain appeared at the corner of Nie Tian's mouth as he looked at Qianlongbo provocatively. Make your move. Courting death. Qianlongbo couldn't take it anymore. With a furious roar, the black flames behind him grew more violent, and countless black lights shot towards Nie Tian like dancing black tentacles. Watch out! Huijia and the others screamed when they saw this. Qianlongbo was truly enraged. His first move was to unleash the full power of the divine prison's black flames. He wanted to kill Nie Tian in one move. Facing Qianlongbo's fatal attack, Nie Tian's lips curled up in disdain. He released the power of thunder and lightning from his body. Terrifying purplish gold lightning condensed into the shape of a giant dragon. In an instant, the entire hall shook violently. Qianlongbo felt the dragon's might rushing towards him. The divine prison's black flames around him seemed to have sensed the threat and began to contract. Break for me! Nie Tian took a step forward and let out an angry roar. The lightning dragon suddenly pressed down, and a violent explosion rang out in the void. The black flames were unable to withstand the overwhelming pressure and were forcibly torn apart, dissipating in the air. In the next moment, a miserable scream rang out. Qianlongbo's figure was sent flying. When he landed on the ground, a glaring line of blood appeared on the ground. One move, another move. Nie Tian had defeated Qianlongbo. The entire hall fell into a deathly silence once again. Huijia and the others widened their eyes. What happened just now was like a dream. They were unable to react at all. Qian Longbo, the lord of the Holy Light Sky Empire, the younger brother of the Holy Light Emperor, a top expert of the Shumi world, was defeated. Not only was he was defeated so miserably. With a single move, Nie Tian had rendered him powerless to fight back. What kind of terrifying power was contained in Nie Tian's body? Where was Nie Tian's limit? Hua Jia and the others trembled violently, as if they were looking at a monster. Is this your strength? Nie Tianling looked coldly at Qian Longbo, who was lying on the ground. The contempt in his eyes was self-evident. You want to take away half of the Black Moon Empire? Dream on. Qian Longbo's strength was not weak. Unfortunately, the divine prison black flame was suppressed by the power of lightning. In front of Nie Tian, he could not withstand a single blow. You? Puffed. Qian Longbo struggled to stand up. Just as he was about to speak, he felt a tightness in his chest and vomited a mouthful of blood. Mfumph. Nie Tianling sneered. Suddenly, his figure flashed and appeared in front of Qian Longbo. The latter's face turned pale, and he subconsciously retreated. What do you want? Qian Longbo felt the coldness in Nie Tian's body, and his voice began to tremble. Nie Tian, don't be rash. Hua Jia and Jia Guang shouted at the same time. They were afraid that Nie Tian would do something crazy. No matter what, Qian Longbo was a member of the Holy Light Heaven dynasty, and his status was not low. If Nie Tian killed him on impulse, it would definitely infuriate the Holy Light Heaven dynasty, and Nie Tian would be in big trouble. Nie Tian smiled coldly. Don't be nervous. I won't kill you. I just want to ask you a few questions. Qian Longbo was slightly stunned. What do you want to ask? Nie Yuro, Xiuling Nie Tian's eyes darkened. Do you know these two people? They're the princesses of our celestial empire. Are you planning something bad by asking about them? Qian Longbo's face was slightly nervous, even panicked. The two people Nie Tian mentioned were the two princesses with the highest status in the Holy Light Empire. They were personally guided by the Holy Light Ancestor. This was a treatment that even the crown prince did not have. There were even rumors that Princess Yuro was a martial artist who had awakened the Qianlong Phantom Seal, just like the Holy Light Ancestor. Nie Tian smiled faintly and relaxed a lot. The more nervous Qian Longbo was, the more it meant that Nie Yuro and Xiuling had a high status in the Holy Light Empire. What's your name? Nie Tian asked after thinking for a while. I am Qian Longbo, the younger brother of the Holy Light Empire's emperor. Qian Longbo said in a clear voice. Very good. The corner of Nie Tian's mouth twitched as he said, Tell Patriarch Holy Light that the duel has been brought forward and that I'll visit the Holy Light dynasty in half a year. Tell him to wait for me. Battle? Qian Longbo was stunned. He did not understand what Nie Tian was saying. Chapter 952. Nie Tian's voice was ice cold, and his face was even colder. You? Qian Longbo opened his mouth wide, but when he saw the coldness in the eyes, he could only swallow his words. This time, he had lost a lot of face. As a prince of the Holy Light Empire, a martial artist in the 7th level of the Heaven-Human realm, he was told to get lost. If Qian Longbo didn't still have a bit of rationality in his heart, he would definitely fight with Nie Tian. However, he had to be calm at this moment. He was no match for Nie Tian. He could only return to the Holy Light Empire and tell the Holy Light Emperor about what had happened here. Once the Emperor was furious, Nie Tian would have to spit out what he had swallowed. Humph! Seeing Qian Longbo's gloomy face, Nie Tian naturally guessed what the latter was thinking. He said coldly, Qian Longbo, do you think you can take revenge on me after returning to the Holy Light Empire? Don't think too much. If the Holy Light Ancestor knows that I have taken over the Black Moon Empire, I think he will be very happy. Nie Tian didn't care about the Holy Light Empire at all, which was why he was so domineering. And he knew that the Holy Light Ancestor was a smart man and would not fall out with him for a small Black Moon Empire. Qian Longbo's eyes froze at once, and he took a deep look at Nie Tian with deep fear in his eyes. He didn't dare to stay any longer and left directly. After Qian Longbo left, Lai Wu and Mu Tieba were petrified on the spot, without any expression. They had seen everything that had happened just now. Every word and action of Nyetian had shocked them to the bottom of their hearts. Nyetian wasn't even afraid of the Holy Light Empire, let alone the Scorching Sun Empire or the Konoha Empire. The two had been thinking about revenge before, but now they didn't dare to think about it, even if they had 10,000 gallbladders. The people of the Holy Light Empire should get lost. What are you still doing here? Nyetian glanced at Lai Wu and Mu Tieba and said coldly. The two of them felt as if they had been struck by lightning. Their bodies swayed, and they immediately reacted. Their faces turned pale as they limped away. Seeing that Qian Longbo and the others had all left, fire armor and Jiaguang's foreheads were covered in beads of sweat. If it wasn't for the fact that they were friends with Nyetian, he might have swallowed the entire mystic moon whole. You two don't have any objections now, right? Nyetian walked over and looked slyly at Huijia and Jiaguang. No objections. Both of them nodded in unison. They didn't dare to have any objections at this point. Nyetian nodded his head slightly. Suddenly, a ball of light appeared on his palm. Instantly, a powerful true intent spread out, and a mysterious aura filled the entire hall. This is... Huijia's eyes widened in shock when he sensed this powerful aura. He froze on the spot and opened his mouth wide, but no words came out. What a powerful true intent. Jiaguang's gaze turned sluggish as he cried out in shock. Mo Rushi and the rest didn't know what the ball of light in Nyetian's hand was, but they could feel that it was something extraordinary. Elder Hua, this is the true intent of Tool's path in the three-legged mysterious cauldron, Nyetian said directly. Oh my God, you broke the spiritual seal of the mysterious cauldron? Huijia screamed in disbelief. Yes. Nyetian nodded his head slightly and passed the true intent of Tool's path to Huijia. Our previous agreement is still valid. This true intent is yours. Huijia's entire body swayed, and he almost fell down in excitement. Elder Hua, there's still a true intent of alchemy in the mysterious cauldron. You are a weapon refiner, so you shouldn't be interested in true intent of alchemy. I'll keep it for myself. That shouldn't be a problem, right? Nyetian said indifferently. No problem. Of course not. Hua Jia didn't even think about it and nodded his head repeatedly. To be able to obtain a true intent of Tool's path from the ancient times was already a great gift to him. True intent of alchemy. When Jiaguang heard Nyetian's words, his throat moved and his eyes turned completely red. He was a rank 8 pill refiner. Of course, he could sense the horror of the true intent of Tool's path in front of him. Huijia could even rely on this true intent to advance to a rank 9 weapon refiner. There wasn't a single rank 9 weapon refiner in the entire Sumeru world. There was still a true intent of alchemy in the mysterious cauldron. It was definitely not weaker than the true intent of Tool's path. If he, Jiaguang, could obtain this true intent of alchemy, he could also advance to a rank 9 pill refiner. Thinking of this, Jiaguang's entire body trembled inexplicably. He looked at Nyetian with a burning gaze. Grandmaster Jiaguang, I want to make a deal with you. How can Nyetian not know what Jiaguang was thinking? The corner of his mouth curled up slightly, and his eyes revealed slyness. Lord Nyetian, please speak. Jiaguang faintly felt that Nyetian would use the true intent of alchemy to make a deal with him. His entire person was excited. As expected, Nyetian flipped his palm, and another true intent light ball appeared. It was the true intent of alchemy. Gulp! Jiaguang looked at the true intent light ball in front of him and swallowed hard. He felt that his breathing had stopped. He could sense the power of this true intent of alchemy. He could even borrow the power of this true intent to become a peak rank 9 pill refiner. Jiaguang made a decision in his heart. He was willing to use anything to exchange for the true intent of alchemy in Nyetian's hands. Grandmaster Jiaguang, I've just taken over half of the Black Moon Empire. I have a decision in my heart. I intend to establish a new force, the War God Union. Nyetian said as he observed Jiaguang's reaction. War God Union. Nyetian wanted to use the Black Moon Empire as the foundation to build his own force. In fact, he already had this idea a few years ago. It was just that the timing wasn't very ripe at that time. Now that he had obtained the Black Moon Empire, he already had this strength. Then he could start on this matter. Jia Guang stared at the true intent of alchemy with a burning gaze. It was as though he didn't hear what Nie Tian said. "I'd like you to join the Battle God League and become an elder. What do you think?" Nie Tian continued, emphasizing his words. "War God Union's elder?" Jia Guang was stunned. At this moment, he finally understood what Nie Tian was talking about. His face couldn't help but turn ugly. Nie Tian wanted to establish the War God Union and make him an elder. Wasn't this asking him to become the other party's subordinate? He was an intersect elder of the Alchemist Association. In the entire Sumer world, he was someone with status. How could he become someone else's subordinate? Grandmaster Jia Guang, as long as you're willing to join the War God Union, this true intent of alchemy will be yours. I'm asking you now, are you willing? Of course, Nie Tian knew what Jia Guang was thinking. However, he didn't explain anything. Instead, he asked directly. Since Nie Tian wanted to establish the War God Union, he was determined to build a super strong organization that could contend with the Heaven Realm. Letting Jia Guang join the War God Union was giving him a super great opportunity. As long as he joined the War God Union, his future achievements wouldn't be any lower than those elders of the Heaven Realm Alchemist Association. Nie Tian would only ask once. He only had one chance. If Jia Guang didn't agree, he wouldn't force him. "This," Jia Guang muttered. His expression was very ugly. He was struggling intensely in his heart. Chapter 9:53. Hua Jia's sudden words stunned everyone in the hall. Nie Tian narrowed his eyes. He hadn't expected Fire Armor to be so bold. His original plan was to recruit Jia Guang first before convincing Fire Armor to join. However, things were much simpler now that Fire Armor had voluntarily joined. Alliance leader Nie Tian, may I join the War God Alliance? Fire Armor asked solemnly as he looked at Nie Tian. Of course. Nie Tian smiled faintly and agreed readily. Congratulations, Elder Hua. From today onward, you are the first elder of the War God Alliance. Thank you, Alliance leader. Fire Armor responded loudly and suddenly stepped forward, intending to kneel before Nie Tian. Nie Tian raised an arm to stop Fire Armor. Everyone in the War God Alliance is equal. There's no need to kneel to anyone. Thank you, Alliance leader. Fire Armor was taken aback, but he immediately cupped his hands in thanks. He hadn't expected Nie Tian to make such a rule. Fire Armor naturally had his reasons for voluntarily joining the War God Alliance. He did it for no other reason than because he believed in Nie Tian. It had only been a few months since he first met Nie Tian, but the latter had grown from a nobody to a peak figure in the Meru world. This kind of growth speed was too terrifying. The strength that Nie Tian had displayed just now was no weaker than any leader of a first-rate force in the Meru world. Fire Armor even had a feeling that Nie Tian's current strength would allow him to contend against the four-peak Sumeru realm experts. The most frightening thing was that Nie Tian was too young. He was only 20 years old. Once such a figure matured, a mere Meru world would not be able to restrain him. Fire Armor believed that one day, Nie Tian would definitely be able to break through the plane restriction and enter the legendary celestial realm. As long as he clung to the tree that was Nie Tian, his future achievements would be limitless. One had to admit that Fire Armor had good foresight and courage to choose the right person. Master Jia Guang, if you don't agree, then forget it. Seeing that Jia Guang was still contemplating, Nie Tian was getting a bit impatient. With that, he prepared to put away the true meaning of alchemy. He could leave it to others, such as Zhang Yifeng. I agree. Jia Guang panicked and quickly agreed. He was just stunned by Hua Jia's actions and couldn't react in time. Even Fire Armor had taken the initiative to join the Battle God Alliance, so what was there for him to hesitate about? Very good. Nie Tian smiled faintly and passed the alchemy doubt true intent to Jia Guang. He said, "This alliance head officially announces the establishment of the Battle God Alliance." Hua Jia and Jia Guang were stunned and slightly speechless. There were only 3 people in total. Was there a need for an official announcement? Nietian, on the other hand, was overjoyed. He laughed and said, "The War God Union is still very weak now, but we have a lot of room to grow. Since the War God Alliance was established, it must develop and grow. Otherwise, it would be unworthy of the 2 words, War God." However, following that, Nietian said to Huijia and Jiaguang, "Don't reveal anything about the War God Alliance to outsiders. In the future, the Black Moon Imperial City will be the headquarters of the War God Alliance. As for the Black Moon Empire, the 2 of you will be in charge." Nietian knew that his current strength was still too weak to contend with the Heaven Realm. Moreover, his identity had been exposed. There would be a steady stream of Heaven Realm assassins appearing. It was not a wise move to establish the War God Alliance with great fanfare. Yes, Huijia and Jiaguang nodded in unison. Nietian handed the Black Moon Empire to Huijia and Jiaguang not only because of their identities, but also because of the forces behind them. The Alchemist Guild and the Blacksmith Guild were organizations comparable to first-rate forces. He believed that not many people would have the guts to openly provoke the 2 guilds. "Alliance Master, will the people from the Holy Light Dynasty come looking for trouble?" Huijia asked worriedly. "Don't worry. The people from the Holy Light Dynasty will not come to the Black Moon Empire anymore." Nietian smiled faintly, his face brimming with confidence. He believed that when Qian Longbow returned, he would definitely tell everything that happened here to the Holy Light Ancestor. The Holy Light Ancestor would not fall out with Nietian over a small Black Moon Empire. Even if the Holy Light Ancestor really fell out with him, Nietian would not be afraid. The reason why he dared to let Qian Longbow bring forward the battle to half a year later was because he had absolute confidence in his own strength. Not to mention half a year later, Nietian could fight with the Holy Light Ancestor now. Huijia felt the strong confidence released by Nietian and nodded heavily, knowing that he had chosen the right person. "Oh yes, Grandmaster Jiaguang, I need some elixirs to increase my strength." Nietian suddenly thought of something and said to Jiaguang, "Okay." Jiaguang did not ask further. He took out a dimensional bag and said, "Alliance Leader, there are 200 rank 8 elixirs in here." Nietian did not stand on ceremony. He took the dimensional bag and threw it to Qiushan. Qiushan and the others were too weak and urgently needed to increase their strength. Next, Nietian let Huijia and Qiushan return first to mobilize the strength of the 2 major guilds and prepare to take over the Black Moon Empire. The name of the War God Alliance would not appear in the short term. On the surface, the Black Moon Empire would be taken over by the 2 major guilds. Nietian did not want to expose himself. When a situation in the Black Moon Empire stabilized a little, he would leave the Black Moon Empire. Then, Nietian left the palace with Mo Rushi and the others. He did not want to stay in the palace. This place was too conspicuous. After a while, Nietian and the others arrived at the Jade Mansion. At this time, the destroyed Jade Mansion had been rebuilt. Nietian and the others entered the Jade Mansion directly. In the distance, a burly figure appeared. It was Han Tian. "Teacher." Seeing Nietian appear, Han Tian shouted in surprise. "Teacher." The others were stunned. They did not expect that Nietian would accept another disciple. Nietian nodded slightly and introduced everyone. Duan Mulu was slightly embarrassed. His senior brother's strength was not as strong as his junior brother Han Tian's. However, he had already obtained the inheritance of Sword Intent. His cultivation speed would be very fast. Nietian temporarily stayed in the Jade Mansion. He planned to go to the Snow Domain ice field in a few days. Late at night, the moon was like a silver plate, and the sky was full of stars. In the small courtyard of the Jade Mansion, 2 figures snuggled up to each other. Nietian and Mo Rushi had not seen each other for several months. There were thousands of words between them, but at this moment, they turned in a silent snuggling. "Nietian, let's not separate anymore, okay?" Mo Rushi was like a kitten. She trembled in Nietian's arms and said softly, "Okay." The corner of Nietian's mouth was close to the other's ear. feeling the girl's warm body fragrance. His whole body was surging with a violent heat. At this time, a cold wind blew. Nyetian became cold. He whispered in Emo Rushi's ear, "Rushi, let me send you back to your room." Emo Rushi nodded lightly. A faint blush appeared on her delicate face. Chapter 954. Inside the room, Nyetian sat cross-legged and quickly entered into a state of cultivation. His current strength was already at the 5th level of the heaven realm, and his body had awakened 250 billion stars, causing the domain origin array to revolve faster. Hellfire Crucible smelt the heavens and earth. Nyetan gazed at the Hellfire Crucible in the 3rd layer of the Star River, feeling the scorching heat of the astral sacred flame. His heart trembled. As the power of the stars continued to increase, the power of the astral sacred flame became stronger and stronger, and was no longer weaker than the devil fire on the devil fire list. But Nyetian knew that the power of the astral sacred flame was only at the initial stage, and its limit would definitely be extremely terrifying, unimaginable. Most likely, only the legendary Devil Fire list number 1 Devil Fire, the Devil Fire universe boundary, could be compared to it. I need to quickly increase my strength, Nyepton mumbled to himself. As long as his strength increased, the power of the stars in his body would awaken even faster. Coming out from the Star River domain, Nyeption inspected the 4 star souls on the Star Soul tablet. There were 4 7th-level star souls on the tablet. Hellfire, Hell Armor, Yama Ominous Appearance, Yama Sword. These 4 7th-level star souls were specially chosen by Nyetian as a combination star soul and could be activated at the same time. He estimated that by activating all 4 star souls at the same time, he would be able to fight against a peak 9th-level Heaven Realm martial artist. Nyetian had already discovered that the star souls seemed to have some sort of effect on the star soul tablet, and under the effect of the star souls, the divine imprints on the star soul tablet were showing signs of awakening. Divine imprints, this was a type of power that was comparable to sword imprints. Until now, Nyetian still did not know what kind of power it was. But his sea of consciousness had inadvertently fused with the divine imprints on the 3-legged mysterious cauldron, causing his divine sense to become even stronger. Divine imprints. Sword imprints. At this time, Nyetian suddenly thought of something, and his brows furrowed as he could not help but exclaim, "Could there be a relationship between the two?" At this time, the Sword Elder and Corpse Demon Lord were working together to refine the Soul Slaves, and wanted to use the power of the sword patterns to completely erase the remaining soul power in Nyechio's body. As long as they were done, Nyetian would be able to completely control Nyechio. Nyetian didn't disturb the Sword Elder. He thought for a moment and circulated the power of the divine imprint through his meridians. At the same time, the power of the sword imprint slowly surged. Boom! The moment the power of the divine patterns and the power of the sword patterns collided, an enormous force was generated. In the blink of an eye, Nyetian felt all the meridians in his body tremble inexplicably, and the aura of his origin power became inexplicably stronger. Nyetian's eyes narrowed, and a look of great surprise appeared on his face. The fusion of the divine imprint and the sword imprint actually produced a strange energy that directly increased his strength. Try again. Nyetian suppressed the astonishment in his heart and circulated the power of the divine vestige sword mark once more. The essence energy in his body actually became stronger once more. Too bizarre. Nyetian's face was full of disbelief, his expression becoming incomparably shocked. If he kept on fusing the divine rune and the sword imprint, wouldn't his strength be able to soar continuously? Thinking up to here, Nyetian became even more excited and started to fuse the divine rune and the sword imprint nonstop, letting the 2 types of energy clash in his body, and his essence energy started to skyrocket nonstop. Holy SH**T. 6th level heaven being strength. After a moment, Nyetian's entire body was drenched in sweat, but he was extremely excited and could not resist cursing. In just a few hours, his strength actually forcefully increased by a level. Nietion was shocked until he stared dumbfoundedly, his expression somewhat dazed. This sort of situation was too bizarre and too terrifying. If it continued at this speed, in a few days, he would be able to reach the peak Heavenly Emperor realm. Stinking brat, don't use the power of the Sword Mark anymore. Just as Nietion was extremely excited, Sword Elder's voice sounded out very angrily. Nietion was slightly stunned. Only then did he remember that Sword Elder still wanted to use the power of the Sword Mark to erase Niechio's soul force. Sword Elder, just what kind of power is the Sword Mark and the Divine Rune? Why would it directly increase my strength after fusing them together? Since Sword Elder appeared, Nietion voiced out the doubts in his heart. Sword Elder was rather impatient, but he still said, Sword Mark and Divine Rune are the same kind of power, but they are of different attributes. This is a kind of power that surpasses heaven and earth spiritual energy. Deity realm martial artists call it the bright spirit power. Bright spirit power. Nietion had a face of astonishment. There was indeed a higher level of power in this world. Bright spirit power exists between heaven and earth. It has no beginning and no end, neither born nor extinguished. It is considered to be a type of source power. Sword Elder continued to speak with a hint of solemnity in his expression. The power of the Divine Rune and the power of the Sword Mark are of different attributes. But I am very curious. How are you able to fuse the two powers together? Nietion was stunned. He did not know what bright spirit power was, and even more did not know how the power of the Divine Rune and the Sword Mark could be fused. But Nietion guessed in his heart that it should be related to the power of the stars in his body. The power of the stars, from the moment it was awakened, it had always been subtly changing his body. At the same time, Nietion also noticed a detail. Sword Elder said that bright spirit power was a type of source power, but he faintly felt that this statement might be wrong, because the Raw Star Stone had once said that the power of the stars was the source of power. Let's not talk so much with you. You should quickly raise your strength to the Heavenly Emperor realm. At that time, this sovereign will give you a big gift. Sword Elder saw that Nietion was in a daze, so he laughed and once again returned to the Hellfire Furnace. A big gift. Nietion was stunned, and his heart was filled with great anticipation. A big gift from Sword Elder? It must be no small matter. Then I must raise my strength to the Heavenly Emperor realm as soon as possible. Nietion's mouth curved up, and he smiled. But he did not dare to use the power of the Sword Mark again, and he had already discovered that the power of the Sword Mark in his body had weakened a lot. He guessed that the bright spirit power should be a very thin power, and the Sword Mark must absorb the bright spirit power in order to transform into the power of the Sword Mark. This was just like the Yuan Qi in a martial artist's body. It must be absorbed by the Yuan Meridian in order to be transformed into different types of Yuan Qi. The amount of bright spirit power that the Sword Mark could absorb was limited, and he had almost used it all up, which was why Sword Elder was so anxious. It seems that relying on the power of the Sword Mark to increase my strength is not very realistic. Nietion was speechless, and he smiled. But after all, he had another way to cultivate, and it was not bad. The next morning, Nietion walked out of his room, and his body was emitting a sharp light. He was in high spirits, and he was showing off his abilities. Just as he walked out of his room, he suddenly felt a cold aura, and he furrowed his brows. Then, the corners of his mouth curled up, and he shouted coldly, "Come out!" Bang! As he shouted angrily, invisible sound waves turned into air waves, bombarding the void, and a muffled sound was heard. Good technique. You can actually detect my existence. Then a figure appeared in the void, and the face was very familiar. It was the assassin of the 10,000 Demons Dragon Abyss, Yu Jingji. Chapter 955. Nietion stared at Yu Jingji. A cold light flashed in his eyes. He thrust his sword forward, but this time it was in a different direction. The sharp sword essence whizzed out. The sword essence rolled in the void, and the sword radiance filled the space within thousands of meters. The momentum of heaven and earth changed. At this moment, in the empty space, a surprised voice rang out. After that, a boundless palm force descended, landing with a loud bang. Boom! With an explosion, the two powerful forces collided. The surrounding houses shook violently and turned into ruins. The next moment, a figure in a black robe appeared. He was tall, but extremely skinny. From afar, he looked like a skeleton. Nyetian, long time no see. The figure stood in midair. Although he had deliberately restrained his aura, he still gave off a powerful pressure. His expression was calm, as usual, and he didn't show too much surprise, but his heart was like a stormy sea. Nyetian could sense Yu Jingji's presence. This was not a big deal. As long as one's spiritual energy was strong enough, one could do it. However, his figure was hidden in the void, perfectly fusing with the space. There was almost no fluctuation of origin energy. Yet, Nyetian could still sense his presence. This was very strange. You are the dragon head of the abyss of demons? Nyetian looked at the skinny elder and asked in a deep voice. The elder in front of him looked extremely skinny. He was like a candle in the wind. However, his aura was very powerful. His strength was even more domineering. He had actually reached the 8th level of the celestial realm. There was a strong fluctuation of dragon chi in the elder's body. He must be from the abyss of demons. Nyetian guessed that even if he was not the dragon head of the abyss of demons, he was definitely an important figure in the abyss of demons. I'm not the dragon head. I am a high priest of dragon abyss, In Zishu. In Zishu said in a deep voice. His voice was deep and suffocating. High priest of dragon abyss. Nyetian's eyes narrowed slightly. Then he calmed down and smiled faintly. It seems that you have received Li Tianhao's message. Since this person knew his name, they clearly knew what had happened in the forbidden land of wind and cloud. Nyetian was a little puzzled. The people of the 10,000 demon dragon abyss were not interested in the cliff dragon coffins. Instead, they kept chasing after him. Was he more important than those dragon coffins? In Zishu nodded his head as a strange smile appeared on his face. Since you already know, then hand over the dragon ring. His tone was calm, but domineering, as if he was directly ordering Nyetian. If you want the dragon ring, come and get it yourself. Nie Tianling replied indifferently. His eyes were filled with suppressed anger. In Zishu's attitude was too arrogant. Did he think that a mere high priest could scare Nie Tian? What a joke. Oomph. In Zishu laughed, and his expression suddenly became cold. He said coldly, Nie Tian, don't refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. If you obediently hand over the dragon ring, I can let you join the myriad demons' dragon abyss. I can even let you become a priest of the dragon abyss. If you don't hand it over, not only will you die, but everyone around you will also die. The killing intent in In Zishu's eyes could no longer be concealed as he uttered the word die. The sharp killing intent was like an invisible net that enveloped Nyetian. Nyetian. At this moment, Mo Rushi and the others appeared. Feeling the bone-chilling coldness, they couldn't help but scream. Don't come over. Nyetian immediately waved his hand and said to Han Tian, protect the others. Nyetian was confident that he could deal with In Zishu, but he needed time. If Yu Jingji attacked the others at this time, it would be bad. Yes, Han Tian replied. He stared coldly at Yu Jingji. Last time, Yu Jingji had injured him. This time, it wouldn't be so easy. In that case, you must go against the 10,000 demon dragon abyss. In Zishu coldly smiled. Before his ice-cold voice faded, he had already made his move. His palms swatted out, and a tremendous amount of dragon chi roared out, condensing into a giant dragon claw in the air that swiped at Nyetian. Nyetian reacted extremely quickly. He moved and avoided the dragon claw head-on. With a loud bang, 100-meter-long dragon claw pit appeared on the ground behind him. You want to be arrogant in front of me with such strength? Nie Tianling smiled coldly. His whole body also released a powerful dragon aura. At the same time, the power of thunder surged out. The surrounding space immediately surged with a terrifying thunder fighting intent. In Zishu's eyes slightly darkened. He originally thought that he could capture Nyetian with one move if he personally attacked. But now, It seemed that Nietion's strength was far beyond his expectations. Nietion, you are too arrogant. Zishu's eyes became even colder. His whole body was filled with killing intent. A dragon's shadow burst out of his body, and a powerful aura immediately froze the surrounding space. The people of the 10,000 Demon Dragon Abyss are really strong. Nietion's eyes narrowed, and he became much more cautious. From his aura, it could be seen that Zishu was stronger than Yurushwang. Go to hell! Zishu let out a fierce roar, and the dragon-shaped shadow that enveloped his body suddenly went berserk. Like a real divine dragon, it rolled out, stirred up the dark clouds in the sky, and directly swooped down towards Nietion. Watch out! Seeing this, everyone's eyes narrowed, and they couldn't help but cry out. Come on! Nietion was not afraid. Instead, he became excited. The power of thunder in his body revolved crazily, and the purple-gold lightning gathered to form a thunder dragon, wrapping around his body. The next moment, Nietion's body shot up into the sky. Roar! The thunder dragon roared angrily, and a mighty dragon aura surged out. Rumble! Rumble! The void continued to explode, and the surging dragon aura wreaked havoc in the space. Both Nietion and Zishu had dragon rings, so the dragon aura released from their bodies was real. Rushi and the others looked at the void, where the two dragon shadows were fighting, colliding, attacking, and resisting each other. The entire sky was filled with a violent aura, and terrifying power surged in the air. This was the purest confrontation of power, a battle of dragon aura. Rumble! At this moment, the two dragons collided fiercely with each other. The two silhouettes retreated and stabilized themselves in the air. Nietion was covered in blood, but the determination in his eyes didn't change, and the battle intent in his body became even wilder. On the other side, Zishu was also covered in blood, and he looked even more miserable than Nietion. He hadn't expected the dragon aura in Nietion's body to be so strong, and it had far exceeded his expectations. Yu Jingji, what are you waiting for? Do it! Suddenly, Zishu looked at Yu Jingji and roared. Yu Jingji's eyes turned cold, and he immediately locked onto Rushi and the others. He could already see that Rushi and Nietion's relationship was not ordinary. As long as he captured her, he was not afraid that Nietion wouldn't give in. Your opponent is me. Just before Yu Jingji moved, a huge figure appeared and stopped him. It was his old rival, Han Tian. Brat, it's you again. Yu Jingji smiled cold, and his eyes became sinister. Chapter 956. When Nietion saw that Yu Jingji was about to make a move, but was stopped by Han Tian, he felt slightly relieved. However, he had to get rid of Zishu as soon as possible. Yu Jingji was a martial artist who had fused with a sage's bone. Han Tian was no match for him. Nietion, where did you get your dragon ring? Zishu looked at Nietion cold and suddenly asked. Nietion was stunned for a moment, but he immediately realized that his opponent was trying to buy time. Zishu was waiting for Yu Jingji to capture Rushi and the others. As long as they had hostages, no matter how powerful Nietion was, it would be useless. You don't deserve to know. However, Nietion would not give him such a chance. With a roar, his figure moved, and the thunder dragon under his feet rolled out. The power of thunder gathered in the void and formed several giant lightning bolts that were thousands of meters long. They intersected and formed a giant lightning net that pounced towards Zishu. What a powerful force! Zishu could feel the powerful thunder-fighting will, and his eyes narrowed. He then punched out, and a strange force was released. A mass of black light condensed into a black fist in the air. Boom! The fist shook the sky. Suddenly, a vast aura bloomed in the void, and a terrifying aura of death descended. Sage's bone. When Nietion saw the black fist, his eyes trembled violently. The proud sword wings appeared on his back. With a flap of the wings, he quickly retreated thousands of meters away. Boom! With a loud noise, the black fist broke through the lightning net and drew a terrifying trajectory in the air. The space let out a mournful wail. Nietion's eyes suddenly narrowed. Could it be that the black fist flew past his body? Half of his arm was invaded by a black aura, and he instantly lost consciousness. Bang! He focused slightly and operated the yuan meridians in his body, directly forcing the black aura out of his body. He then spat out a mouthful of dirty blood. Fortunately, he dodged in time. If he was hit by the black fist, even if he did not die, he would have lost a layer of skin. He did not expect that In Zishu also had a sage's bone, and it was even more terrifying than the sage's bone in Yu Jingji's body. Another sage's bone. Could there be a sage's grave in the 10,000 demon dragon abyss? Nietion's eyes flickered as he made a terrifying guess. Yu Jingji had a sage's bone, and now In Zishu had another sage's bone. Nietion couldn't help but suspect that the 10,000 demons dragon abyss might contain the legendary sage's lost tomb. The saint's tomb was a better place than any other ancient ruins. After the fall of a sage, his remains were indestructible and became the bones of a sage. The place where the sages had fallen was the sage's tomb. Imagine the countless bones of saints buried in one place. It would drive anyone crazy. However, In Zishu's fusion with the saint's bone was still not thorough enough. It was only slightly better than Yu Jingji's, but it was still far from being able to unleash the true power of the saint's bone. Nietion, you didn't expect me to have a saint's bone, did you? Huh? In Zishu laughed wildly and said in a cold voice, "Obediently accept your death." From his point of view, since he had used the saint's bone, Nietion would no longer be able to fight back. It's just a piece of broken bone. Do you really think you're invincible? Tianling smiled coldly. His eyes were unusually firm, without the slightest fluctuation. Although the saint's bone was strong, In Zishu was far from being able to unleash its true power. Therefore, Nietion wasn't afraid. You're courting death. In Zishu was completely enraged. He roared and punched again. A terrifying dark energy surged out, and the surroundings suddenly fell into darkness. The atmosphere became extremely evil. Nietion, Mo Rushi, saw the sky suddenly darkening and Nietion's figure submerged in the darkness. Her heart tightened, and her delicate face was filled with worry. She hated herself for being too weak and unable to help Nietion at the critical moment. Above the void, Nietion's figure stood still. Although the surroundings had become pitch black, his vision was not obstructed. The eye of the starry sky was very powerful. Even in the shroud of dark energy, it was still unaffected. Nietion, prepare to die. In Zishu's roar sounded in the darkness. The terrifying dark energy suddenly became violent and gathered in the void, becoming more and more intense. Nietion's muscles tensed up. The dark power made him feel slightly suffocated, making it hard for him to breathe. At the critical moment, his eyes suddenly focused, and his hand formed the God of War seal. The space shrouded by the dark energy suddenly shook, and the power of heaven and earth changed. In Zishu felt the power of heaven and earth change. His eyes narrowed, and then he sneered and said arrogantly, Nietion, the power of the saint's bone is not something you can imagine. No matter what you do, you can't escape death. Is that so? The corner of Nietion's mouth curled up, and he murmured as if he was talking to himself. The next moment, a golden light seal appeared in his palm, burning with a dazzling white flame. The power of the soul, severing seal, and the starry sky sacred flame is enough to defeat you. Nietion smiled slightly, and with a flip of his palm, the soul severing seal shot out violently, and the surrounding space suddenly tightened. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. At the moment when Nietion made his move, countless golden lights appeared, directly cutting the dark space. Die. Almost at the same time, In Zishu also made his move. The aura of the dark energy skyrocketed, and a black claw appeared, like a fierce tiger, fiercely pouncing. The powerful power raged, and in the space, darkness and light alternated, fighting against each other. Boom, boom, boom. At a certain moment, The black claw finally collided with the soul-severing seal. A destructive aura surged, and a large area of black light was torn apart by the golden light, collapsing into pieces. The dark energy released by the saint's bone was instantly defeated under the destructive power of the soul-severing seal. How is this possible? Zishu's figure shuddered violently, unable to believe the scene before him. The power of the saint's bone was so strong that he was confident that he could fight against a ninth-layer heaven-human realm expert. Yet it couldn't resist Nietion's strange seal. Nietion had used the strongest seal among the 3 seals of the divine god of battle, the soul-severing seal. Furthermore, he had merged the power of the starry sacred flame, which increased the power of the soul-severing seal by a few times. The saint's bone was indeed powerful, but Zishu had not truly merged with it. It was highly possible that he had used some kind of evil art to merge his body with the saint's bone. This method was unable to unleash the true power of the saint's bone. Thus it was unable to resist Nietion's soul-severing seal. Dragon Abyss High Priest, you're the one who's going to die this time. As Zishu was in a state of shock, Nietion's icy voice could be heard, followed by a murderous sword glow. Zishu could feel the aura of death approaching him, but it was too late for him to defend himself. His eyes were filled with great fear as a sword glow flickered in front of him. His body shuddered, and his life force was instantly extinguished. The high priest of the 10,000 demons Dragon Abyss was dead. Chapter 9:57. Up in the sky, just as Zishu's life was cut off, the darkness in the space suddenly disappeared, and the world returned to its original brightness. Nietion's figure moved, and he came to Zishu's side. A flame gushed out of his hand and directly burned Zishu's body. A dark golden palm bone appeared in front of him, and on one of the fingers of the palm bone there was a dragon ring. The hand of Saint. Nietion completely ignored the dragon ring, and his eyes shone as he looked at the dark golden palm bone in front of him. He felt a vast and mysterious aura, and his whole person was stunned. The bone of a saint. This was the real hand of a saint. The bone of a saint. At this time, a sharp scream rang out. It was the voice of the Sword Elder. Nietion was awakened by this scream, and he immediately calmed down and put away the palm bone of a saint. Now was not the time to be surprised. There was still an unfinished enemy on the other side. On the other side of the sky, Han Tian and Yu Jingji's battle continued. Han Tian had the heavenly stone body, and his strength was very strong, but he was still no match for Yu Jingji. After a long battle, his body was already seriously injured, and his pale face was covered with dirt, which was obviously caused by the dark energy in his body. Oh no! Yu Jingji saw that Zishu had been killed by Nietion, and he screamed. His figure moved, and he wanted to escape. Even Zishu was no match for Nietion, so how could he fight the latter? Want to escape? Too late. Nietion's speed was extremely fast, and his whole body was surging with the power of thunder. He was like a ferocious beast, and he madly pounced towards Yu Jingji. A black vortex appeared on half of Yu Jingji's face, and a powerful dark energy surged out, rushing towards Nietion. You want to take the opportunity to escape again? Nietionling smiled coldly. Last time, Yu Jingji had used this method to escape, and this time, he wanted to use the same trick again. How could it be so easy? Die! Nietion did not care at all, and with a loud bang, he slammed his palm down, and the violent power of thunder came crashing down, directly engulfing the dark energy. A shrill scream was heard as Yu Jingji's body was wrapped up by the lightning. Suddenly, a terrifying force came from all directions and tore his body apart. After a bloody scene, a dark golden skull appeared, and beside it was a dragon ring. Nietion smiled and raised his arm, putting away the saint's facial bone and the dragon ring. In the blink of an eye, he had 2 saint bones and 2 dragon rings. Zishu and Yu Jingji's dragon rings were both 4-star dragon rings, but just like Li Tianhao's dragon ring, Nietion's spiritual consciousness still could not detect the information inside the dragon rings. Nie Tian descended from the sky and came to Han Tian's side, helping him force out the dark, evil energy from his body. Nie Tian, are you all right? At this time, Mo Rushi walked over with a nervous look on her face. Nie Tian smiled faintly, indicating that he was fine. After dealing with the assassins of the 10,000 Demons Dragon Abyss, Nie Tian asked the others to leave. Then, he returned to his room with Mo Rushi. Nie Tian, I'm sorry. Mo Rushi looked at Nie Tian, and the corner of her eyes suddenly became wet. Her voice was slightly hoarse, as if she was about to cry. Rushi, Nie Tian hugged the girl in his arms tightly, not knowing what to do. Mo Rushi's body trembled, and she said, "It's all my fault. Every time you were in danger, I could only watch from the side." Nie Tian's heart trembled, and a warm feeling welled up in his heart. So, Mo Rushi was sad because of this. "Silly girl, you're helping me by watching from the side." Nie Tian held the beautiful face in front of him with both hands and joked, making Mo Rushi laugh through her tears. Why? Mo Rushi's tears turned into laughter as she raised her head and asked with a serious expression, "Why?" Nie Tian nodded and said very seriously, "Because a man can't lose a battle in front of his woman." Mo Rushi felt the determination in Nie Tian's eyes, and her heart inexplicably warmed. Then, she thought of the meaning in Nie Tian's words, and her little face blushed all the way to her ears. After a while, Mo Rushi wiped the tears from the corner of her eyes and suddenly thought of something and asked, "Oh, by the way, what kind of power did that person use just now? It's so strange." "It's a sage's bone." Nie Tian nodded slightly, and then the sage's palm bone appeared in his hand. Suddenly, a mysterious aura circulated in the space, and it was as if everything in the surroundings had stopped. What a strange power! Mo Rushi was shocked, and her beautiful eyes couldn't help but flicker when she felt the mysterious aura released by the sage's bone. However, when Nie Tian looked at the sage's palm bone in his hand, he frowned slightly and murmured, "According to the legend, the bones and blood of the sage are all golden. Why is this sage's bone dark gold? It's caused by sorcery." As soon as his voice fell, the Sword Elder's voice sounded and said, "The person who fused with the sage's bone used some kind of sorcery, causing the sage's bone to be covered in dust, causing the skeleton to turn dark gold." As expected, Nie Tian's heart trembled. He had previously guessed that Yin Zishu and Yu Jingji must have used some kind of sorcery, which was why they could fuse with the sage's bone. However, their fusion was not a true fusion, and they couldn't even exert 1% of the sage's bone's power. In his previous life, Nie Tian had seen the Snow Emperor sage's arm bone, and with a casual move, it could destroy heaven and earth. The Snow Emperor had the Snow Cloud sacred body, which was why he could fuse with the sage's bone. It was precisely because of the sage's bone that the Snow Emperor could become the supreme of the 9 emperors. It was really hard to imagine how terrifying a real sage would be if a mere piece of bone could have such a powerful power. Nie Tian, who is this lady to you? Suddenly, the Sword Elder asked. My fiancée. Nie Tian was stunned for a moment, and then said, I want to test her martial body. A sharp light flashed in the Sword Elder's eyes, and he directly came out of Nie Tian's sea of consciousness and appeared in front of Mo Rushi. Nie Tian was suddenly stunned. He didn't know that the Sword Elder could leave his sea of consciousness. However, as soon as the Sword Elder left the sea of consciousness, his originally illusory body became even dimmer. Obviously, the Sword Elder only temporarily left Nie Tian's sea of consciousness, and he couldn't stay for a long time. Nie Tian, what is this thing? Mo Rushi was shocked by the Sword Elder's sudden appearance, and she exclaimed, Little girl, don't be nervous. I am Nie Tian's friend. The Sword Elder explained, and at the same time, a light gushed out of his palm, like a flame, swaying and floating. Rushi, the Sword Elder is my friend. He has something to do. Nie Tian was slightly nervous, and he firmly held Mo Rushi's small hand and said. He noticed a strange look in the Sword Elder's eyes, and it seemed that the latter had discovered something on Mo Rushi's body. The Sword Elder took a deep breath and the light on his palm flowed into Emo Rushi's body, and after a moment, the light returned to his palm and disappeared. At this moment, the Sword Elder's whole body directly stiffened, and he stared at Emo Rushi with a stunned face. His mouth kept trembling, but he couldn't make a single sound. Nyetian, what happened to this old gentleman? Emo Rushi's scalp tingled under the Sword Elder's stare, and she cautiously asked, Sword Elder, what did you discover? Nyetian was also extremely nervous, and his heart was in his throat. Chapter 958. Sage Body. Nyetian saw the Sword Elder's nervous expression, and his eyes were filled with passion. He could not help but be stunned. The Sword Elder was a figure from the ancient times. Ordinary things simply could not enter his eyes. This was the first time he showed such a shocked expression. This was enough to show that the sage body was a very terrifying thing. Nyetian subconsciously felt that the sage body mentioned by the Sword Elder should be related to the sage bone. Sage body? Emo Rushi was stunned for a moment. Her face was slightly nervous, but not because of the sage body, but because she was stared at by the Sword Elder. She did not like other men to look at her. Even if the old man in front of her was just a shadow, it still made her feel very uncomfortable. Sword Elder, is the sage body some kind of spiritual body? Nyetian suppressed the shock in his heart and asked in a deep voice. However, the Sword Elder did not seem to hear him. He shifted his gaze away from Emo Rushi and muttered to himself, the body of a saint. It's actually the body of a saint. Heavens, I, Jian Qing Shi, am actually able to see the legendary body of a saint. I'm so happy and excited. Ha ha ha. The Sword Elder said emotionally. At the end of his words, he actually laughed out loud. Jian Qing Shi. Nyetian secretly remembered the Sword Elder's name. The corner of his mouth could not help but twitch. He was slightly speechless. Even if the sage body was very terrifying, there was no need to be so excited. Sword Elder, your body. At this time, Nyetian suddenly realized that the Sword Elder's body was rapidly dimming. He was so scared that he screamed, ah. The Sword Elder was stunned at first, but then he was shocked and immediately returned to his sea of knowledge. He was now only a remnant soul. If he left Nyetian's sea of knowledge, he could dissipate at any time. Returning to his sea of knowledge, the Sword Elder's body gradually recovered. He could not help but let out a long sigh of relief. However, his face was still filled with uncontrollable excitement. He proudly said, Sage Body, I finally saw the legendary number 1 martial body. Number 1 martial body. Upon hearing these words, Nyetian couldn't help but be taken aback. He felt as if he had been struck by lightning, and his entire body went stiff. The sage body turned out to be the number 1 martial body throughout the ages. No wonder the Sword Elder was so excited. Sword Elder, what does the body of a sage represent? Nyetian felt cold sweat oozing from his forehead. He wiped his forehead and asked cautiously, Little Bratnya, your fiancée is absolutely the most frightening person I've ever seen. There is no one else like her. The Sword Elder finally regained his composure, but his tone was still filled with great excitement. Gulp. Nyetian swallowed his saliva and couldn't help but look at Emo Rushi, muttering in his heart, Is Rushi really that powerful? The Sword Elder was someone who had seen God Realm martial artists. Yet he actually said that Emo Rushi was the most terrifying person he had ever seen. This evaluation was simply too much. Little Bratnya, you're really lucky to be able to marry a martial artist with the body of a sage. Amazing. The Sword Elder chuckled and jokingly said, Sword Elder, hurry up and tell me what the sage body is. Nyetian couldn't hold it in any longer and said impatiently, Okay, listen carefully. The Sword Elder wasn't angry. His expression became slightly solemn as he said, Ordinary martial artists only have ordinary physiques, but some martial artists are naturally stronger than other martial artists. These martial artists are those who have the spirit of heaven and earth. You know that the spirit of heaven and earth is divided into 4 ranks: heaven, earth, mysterious, and yellow. But what you don't know is that above the heaven rank spirit, there is the divine body, and above the divine body, there's the sage body. In ancient legends, martial artists with the sage body have the opportunity to become a sage. And the sage is an existence that transcends the heavens and earth. When the sage is angry, the heaven and earth will collapse. In the legends, the power of the sage has surpassed the great Tao of heaven and earth. With a wave of their hand, they can destroy a part of the world. Nietian listened to the Sword Elder's words, and his whole person became sluggish. He couldn't imagine the power of the sage. At this time, he realized that his previous understanding of the world was so narrow. Do sages really exist? After a long time, Nietian murmured, I don't know. The Sword Elder's expression was solemn as he sighed. For the current martial artists, the Divine Realm martial artists are legends. For the Divine Realm martial artists of the ancient times, the sage was also a legend. Nietian's eyes trembled. It seemed that the Sword Elder had never seen a sage. However, since the sage's bone existed, it meant that the sage must also exist. Well, we've gone too far. The Sword Elder smiled faintly and said, The sage body is the legendary sage body. Moreover, it is the strongest sage body. It is known as the #1 martial body since ancient times. Nietian also slowly calmed down, but with a face full of doubt, he said, Sword Elder, you are mistaken. Rushi is not as strong as you said. Other than her origin spirit being stronger, there is nothing special about her martial body. Nietian had known Mo Rushi for a long time. The latter's strength was very clear to him. It was not as strong as the Sword Elder described. Little Nya, don't doubt me. I will definitely not be wrong about the sage body. The Sword Elder smiled faintly and said, The little girl's martial body did not show its strong side because the sage body has not yet awakened. Not awakened? Nietian was stunned. This was the first time he heard that the heaven and earth spirit body needed to be awakened. The heaven and earth spirit body was innate and improved with the improvement of the martial artist's strength. There was no such thing as awakening. Yes, the Sword Elder was very sure and said, The sage body is the #1 martial body since ancient times. It is a miracle that it can appear again. However, the little girl's sage body has already begun to awaken, but the speed of awakening is very slow. At this point, the Sword Elder suddenly frowned and asked, Did she die once and then resurrect with the help of something? Yes. Nietian froze for a moment and then nodded. Mo Rushi was seriously injured by the ghost and later resurrected with the help of the 8th demon fire, Nirvana's sacred heart. No wonder. The Sword Elder's frown slightly relaxed and said, The reason why her sage body can awaken is because there's a very strong life aura in her body. It seems to be the aura of the demon fire. Yes, it is the 8th demon fire, Nirvana, sacred heart. Nietian nodded and told the story of Mo Rushi. Nirvana, sacred heart, the power of the ancient divine phoenix. No wonder she can awaken the sage body. The Sword Elder's frown completely relaxed, and he understood everything. Just now, he was wondering why Mo Rushi's sage body would automatically awaken. It turned out that it was stimulated by the Nirvana, sacred heart. Nietian also slowly understood. It seemed that when he let Mo Rushi fuse with the Nirvana sacred heart, he inadvertently helped the latter awaken the sage body. Chapter 9:59. The Sword Elder seemed to have seen through Nietian's thoughts and said, Awakening the body of Saint requires something with extremely strong vitality. The vitality of the Nirvana Saint heart is still too weak to completely awaken the body of Saint. The Nirvana Saint heart is too weak? Nietian couldn't help but swallow his saliva. The Nirvana Saint heart was the 8th demonic fire on the demonic fire list. It contained such a strong vitality that it could even bring the dead back to life. Such a power couldn't completely awaken the sage body. This sage body was too terrifying. The sage body was indeed the first martial body in history. Awakening the sage body required something with strong vitality, but the Nirvana Saint heart already had such a strong vitality. If this kind of power couldn't awaken the sage body, it would be really difficult. Nietion really did know something stronger than the life force of the Nirvana Saint Heart, and there was more than one. The raw star stone in his body was stronger than the Nirvana Saint Heart, and so was the Dragon Rebel clan's precious blood of Kylan. But it was useless. The raw star stone had been completely integrated with him and couldn't be separated. The precious blood of Kylan was the Dragon Rebel clan's sacred relic, so it was impossible for Nietion to take it. Nietion, do you want a little girl to completely awaken the sage body? The Sword Elder asked with a hint of excitement in his eyes. Yes. Nietion nodded heavily. Since he knew Mo Rushi's potential, of course he would help her stimulate it. You have something that can awaken the sage body. The Sword Elder's eyes trembled, and his voice became low because of nervousness. What? Nietion was slightly stunned. Then his hands trembled. He immediately understood and exclaimed, "The sage bone." That's right, the sage bone. The sage bone was the skeleton of a fallen sage. After millions of years of erosion, it could still maintain its strong vitality. It was self-evident how strong its vitality was. Nietion, what are you talking about with that old man? Mo Rushi couldn't help but ask. She couldn't hear the conversation between Nietion and the Sword Elder, but she vaguely felt that it had something to do with her. Tell me a secret. Nietion smiled faintly and did not explain too much to Mo Rushi. The secret of the sage body was too big, so it was better to keep it from Mo Rushi for the time being. Up until now, Mo Rushi only knew that the skeleton in Nietion's hand was called the sage's bone, but she didn't know what the sage's bone meant. Sword Elder. At that moment, Nietion suddenly thought of another problem and said, "Rumor has it that the bones of saints are indestructible and indestructible. How can I refine the bones of saints?" Mo Rushi had the body of a saint, but that did not mean that she could fuse with the saint's bone. Therefore, if she wanted to absorb the power of the saint's bone, she had to refine the saint's bone first. Little Nya, there's nothing in this world that can't be destroyed. As long as there's enough destructive power, even saints can be killed. The hellfire crucible inside of you can melt anything and everything. The power of the starry sky, holy flame might be weak, but given enough time, it should be able to melt the bones of sages. Yang Qi's expression flickered, and he smiled. What do you mean? Nietion was slightly stunned. He was a little confused. The Sword Elder smiled and said, "The bones of saints are indeed difficult to destroy, but they can't withstand the burning of the starry sky, holy flame for a long time. I'm confident that I can use the starry sky, holy flame to refine the bones of saints within a month." So that's how it is. Nietion nodded. It was just like how ordinary flames could melt steel. It couldn't be done overnight, but as long as there was enough time, it could be refined. Nietion, you have to be prepared. At that moment, the Sword Elder's eyes flickered, and he said, 2 pieces of saint's bones are far from enough to completely awaken the body of a saint. This. Nietion was stunned for a moment. He couldn't help but gulp. The body of saint was too strong. It needed a lot of saint's bones to awaken. It seems that I need to go to the 10,000 demons abyss. Nietion murmured to himself. Since Yin Zishu and Yu Jingji both had saint's bones, it meant that there must be other saint's bones in the 10,000 demons abyss. However, before going to the abyss, Nietion had to go to the snow ice field first. A few days later, the situation in the Black Moon Empire gradually stabilized. The Holy Light Heaven and the other forces didn't make any moves. It seemed that the ancestor of the Holy Light Heaven didn't want to fall out with Nietion. Nietion didn't want to waste any more time. Rui Qinyu was trapped in the Forbidden Ice Stone. The situation was urgent. He had to find a way to break the stone within 2 months. He also had to find something that could suppress the power of the 9-colored pupils. 7 days later, 3 silhouettes appeared on a vast ancient path. The 3 warriors, 2 men and 1 woman, were Nietion, Qiushan, and Mo Rushi. At this moment, they were walking on a vast ancient road surrounded by desolate deserts. At first glance, it was simple and desolate. Mr. Firebeacon Border City is in front. Qiushan took out a map and pointed at an ancient city in front of them. Nietion slightly nodded. The sword intent on his body condensed into an invisible sword shield that wrapped around the three of them, ensuring that they wouldn't be hit by the wind and sand. Fire Beacon Border City was rumored to be an ancient city with hundreds of thousands of years of history. It had gone through countless years of erosion, but it still existed. After passing through Fire Beacon Border City, they would be able to enter the snow ice field. The three sped up and wanted to enter Fire Beacon Border City before nightfall. They had been rushing for 7 days and 7 nights. Nyetian was fine, but Mo Rushi and Xioshan were not that strong after all, so they urgently needed to rest. Half a day later, the three finally arrived outside of Fire Beacon Border City. Such a majestic, ancient city. Xioshan looked at the high walls outside of the border city. They were actually several hundred meters high and couldn't help but exclaim. Nyetian also slightly nodded. Fire Beacon Border City was indeed an ancient city. The architectural style revealed a simple and unadorned feeling. Fire Beacon Border City is the city closest to the snow ice field. There are not only human warriors inside, but also demon warriors. We must be careful. Niet Tian reminded Xioshan and Mo Rushi before directly entering the city. The moment they entered the city, Niet Tian turned around and saw two figures coming their way. These two people had extraordinary appearances. They had long golden hair, pointed ears, and deep blue eyes. Their appearances were far more handsome than ordinary people. They are from the elf race. Niet Tian transmitted his voice to Mo Rushi, but he himself was a bit surprised because these two elves were at the 3rd level of heaven being. Even though they were not very strong, they were not weak either. At the very least, they could be considered experts in the hidden world. Mo Rushi's little face was filled with surprise. She had never seen an elf before. Xioshan's reaction was very calm. He was the type of person that made others feel at ease and could remain calm at any time. Niet Tian's group continued forward and quickly found that there were many elves inside Fire Beacon Border City. They occupied more than half of the population. As far as the eye could see, there were elves everywhere. Stop right there. At this moment, a deep voice suddenly rang out. Chapter 960. Niet Tian frowned and looked at the elves in front of him. His eyes slightly sank. The elves in front of him were wearing armor and were dressed like guards. They were clearly the guards of Fire Beacon Border City. Who are you people? The elf in the lead looked a bit old. He was probably several tens of thousands of years old. He had a gloomy expression and a hint of coldness in his eyes, as if he was very hostile towards Niet Tian's group. Passers-by, Niet Tian chuckled and calmly said, "These elves are all below the 5th level of heaven being. As long as he wanted to, he could instantly kill all of them. However, he didn't want to attract unnecessary trouble. In the end, they had just arrived at Fire Beacon Border City and were not very clear about the situation here. Passers-by, the elf's eyes darkened again and revealed a hint of murderous intent. Then he said, "Don't you know? Human warriors are not welcome at Fire Beacon Border City." "I don't know." Niet Tian shook his head. He really didn't know this, but there were very few human warriors here. On the contrary, there were many dwarves, demons, and even beastmen. Fire Beacon Border City does not welcome you. Please leave. At this time, the elf suddenly raised his voice and angrily shouted, "Please leave." The other elf guards shouted in unison and released their auras as a powerful pressure shrouded the area. Fire Beacon Border City is a city of freedom. Anyone can enter. Do you have the qualifications to tell us to leave? Niet Tian's voice was cold as he released his sword intent. A mighty sword aura bloomed in the air and directly shattered the opponent's oppressive aura. Even though Niet Tian didn't know much about Fire Beacon Border City, he knew that it was known as a city of freedom. Anyone was allowed to enter and leave. Even the city lord couldn't casually expel them. "You." The elf in the lead was stunned and opened his mouth wide. He didn't think that Niet Tian would be this strong. Scram! Niet Tian didn't want to waste time with them and roared as his aura suddenly soared. Bang! 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 A series of muffled sounds rang out. Those elves couldn't withstand Niet Tian's imposing aura and were sent flying. They heavily smashed into the ground, causing the bluestone floor to shatter. Let's go. Nyetian didn't even look at the elves. He said softly, and the three of them left. The elves struggled to get up, but none of them were seriously injured. Nyetian could tell that these elves didn't want to kill them. They just wanted to drive them away, so he didn't kill them. A moment later, Nyetian's group of three went to a restaurant to rest for the night. Tomorrow morning, they would leave Fire Beacon Border City for the snow ice field. When the surrounding people saw the three humans walking over, they pointed at them, their eyes filled with hostility. Nyetian couldn't help but shake his head. In Fire Beacon Border Town, humans were a rare species. The feeling of being treated as a monster was really unpleasant. They found a more remote table and sat down to order and have a good rest. Lord Commander, it's them. However, right at this moment, a furious shout resounded, and then a group of figures dashed over. It's you again. Nyetian's eyes sank. It was that elf again. It seemed like he didn't give up and wanted to drive Nyetian's group out of the city. But this time, there was an extra young martial artist next to the elf, and it was a human. This person looked to be around 25 or 26 years old, but his strength had reached the 5th level of the Heaven Being realm. Moreover, his body seemed to have the power of a bloodline. This guy's talent is not bad, comparable to the 3 kings of the Meru world. Nyetian was a bit surprised in his heart. Then he looked at the person and asked, "What do you want?" The elves hated humans, but their commander was a human martial artist. This was quite novel. "I am the commander of Fire Beacon Border City's guards, Zhang Chao. Were you the one who injured my subordinates?" Zhang Chao's face was filled with anger as he roared. His body released a violent force that shattered all the tables and chairs within a radius of several dozen meters. He wanted to gain the upper hand with a show of strength and intimidate Nyetian. But unfortunately, the table beside Nyetian didn't move at all and wasn't damaged at all. Zhang Chao frowned when he felt the terrifying aura from Nyetian. Nyetian smiled and said, "They wanted to drive me out of the city, so I just wanted to teach them a lesson." "A lesson?" Zhang Chao sneered. His eyes flickered as he sneered. "Why don't you teach me a lesson as well?" "Sure." Nyetian readily agreed. He smiled and said, "If you insist, I don't mind. You're courting death." Zhang Chao was stunned at first, but he was immediately enraged by Nyetian's mocking attitude. He suddenly took a step forward and punched with his huge fist. A muffled, whistling sound echoed in the air as if the space was about to be torn apart. Nyetian stood up and activated the Sword of Divine Wheel. A mighty sword aura spread out, and an explosion sounded in the air. The next moment, a surprise sound was heard. Zhang Chao couldn't withstand the mighty sword aura and was pushed back a few meters before he could stabilize his body. "You!" Zhang Chao stared at Nyetian in shock. He didn't expect Nyetian to be so powerful. The entire restaurant fell into a deathly silence. Most people here knew Zhang Chao and how powerful he was. However, he was pushed back by Nyetian's aura. Nyetian's strength was too strong. "Not bad." Nyetian glanced at Zhang Chao and said lightly, "There aren't many people who can remain uninjured under the impact of my sword aura. You are one of them." With Nyetian's current strength, an ordinary Sky, human-level 5 martial artist wouldn't be able to withstand the impact of his sword aura. It was already impressive that Zhang Chao was able to withstand the impact of his sword aura. Arrogant. Zhang Chao thought that Nyetian was humiliating him, so he became even more furious. He roared, and a black tombstone appeared behind him. A strange atmosphere filled the entire restaurant. Zhang Chao stopped. At this moment, an indifferent voice rang out. A handsome young cultivator descended from the sky and landed beside Zhang Chao. "Zhou Xiao." Zhang Chao looked at the person beside him and dispersed his aura. The black tombstone behind him also disappeared. "Commander!" The elves exclaimed in surprise when they saw the person. "Commander?" Nyetian stared at the young martial artist in front of him. He was quite surprised. This person named Zhou Xiao was also a human martial artist. He seemed to be in his 20s, but his strength was in the sky, human level 7. This person's talent in martial arts is so strong. He's even more monstrous than the 3 kings. Nyetian murmured in his heart. but his eyes were filled with surprise. These elves obviously hated humans very much, but their commander and chief commander were both human warriors, which was very strange. Zhou Xiao, you came at the right time. This person is very arrogant. You injured. Zhang Xiao was slightly excited, but he was interrupted by Zhou Xiao. He's already shown mercy, Zhou Xiao said with a plain tone as he nodded slightly at Nie Tian to express his gratitude. Chapter 961. Nie Tian remembered that Lin Feng had told him that the person with the strongest martial arts talent in the Shumi world was called the Xiao Emperor. If I recall correctly, his name was Zhou Xiao. Looking at the talent and strength of the person in front of him, he should be the legendary Xiao Emperor. However, Zhou Xiao was from the Shumi world, so why would he appear at Fire Beacon Border City and become a guard commander? It was very strange. Zhou Xiao waved his hand, signaling the elves to leave. He then looked at Nie Tian and indifferently said, "What is your name?" Nie Tian. Nie Tian said his name and then sat down. Zhou Xiao and Zhang Xiao also sat down, and the atmosphere finally eased up. The surrounding crowd was very disappointed. They were originally looking forward to a battle between Nie Tian and Zhou Xiao. "Thank you for being lenient," Zhou Xiao said apologetically. At the same time, his eyes swept past Xiu Shan and Mo Rushi and said, "Brother Nie, why did you come to Fire Beacon Border City?" Nie Tian did not answer and instead asked, "Does Fire Beacon Border City not allow human cultivators to enter?" "That is not the case." Zhou Xiao smiled and explained, "Recently, a person slaughtering blue blood elves appeared at Fire Beacon Border City. In just half a month, several hundred blue blood elves have died. That is why Fire Beacon Border City has recently been under martial law and does not like strangers coming here." Blue blood elves. Nie Tian was stunned for a moment. Then he immediately understood. The ones who clashed with him before were the blue blood elves. Blue blood elves were also known as the blue elves. They were a strange race among the elves, possessing both the earth and water attributes. Their blood was a deep blue color, and their vitality was very powerful. Heavenly Sword Ancestor had half of the blue blood elven bloodline. So it turned out that a person slaughtering blue blood elves appeared at Fire Beacon Border City. No wonder these blue blood elves did not welcome strangers. At this time, Nie Tian suddenly thought of something, and his expression changed as he nervously asked, "Commander Zhou, I want to ask, how long has it been since this person slaughtered blue blood elves appeared?" "About half a month." Zhou Xiao thought for a moment and noticed that Nie Tian's expression was not right. So he asked, "Brother Nie, do you know something?" "I don't know." Nie Tian shook his head, but his heart was in turmoil. The heavenly demon cult had been destroyed about a month ago, and the ancient blood demon Bloody Spirit massacre had also escaped at that time. More than half a month ago, a person slaughtering the blue blood elves appeared at Fire Beacon Border City, and the ancient blood demons were the bane of the blue blood elves. Connecting this series of events together, Nie Tian could not help but feel a chill run down his spine. He faintly felt that the person who had slaughtered the blue elves was most likely the escaped blood-slaughtered spirit. "Brother Nie, if you've thought of something, please speak frankly," Zhou Xiao said again when he saw that Nie Tian's expression wasn't right. Nie Tian calmed down a little, thought for a moment, and decided to speak his mind. "Commander." However, at that moment, a panicked voice sounded and a figure appeared. It was the blue-blooded elf from before. "What happened?" Zhou Xiao stood up and asked nervously. "The murderer has appeared again," said the elf, panting and out of breath. "Zhang Xiao, let's go." Zhou Xiao's sword-like eyebrows furrowed, and his entire body surged with killing intent. His figure flashed, and he directly left. Zhang Xiao immediately followed. Seeing the two leave, Nie Tian's gaze slightly narrowed, and he stood up and said, "Let's go and take a look as well." At this moment, Qiushan's strength was at the 3rd level of Heaven Evolution, while Mo Rushi was only at the 2nd level. Nie Tian was worried about leaving them here alone. 3 figures rushed out of the restaurant and madly chased after Zhou Xiao and the others. At this moment, a dark cloud suddenly rose in the sky. Immediately, a demonic aura spread out, and a demonic ghost face appeared. It really is him, the blood-slaughtered spirit. Nietion's gaze trembled when he saw the demonic ghost face in the sky. He was not wrong. The person who slaughtered the blue blood elves was the blood-slaughtered spirit. Kakik, the blood-slaughtered spirit, let out an ear-piercing strange laughter in the sky, and its fierce eyes emitted a demonic glint as it shouted, "All the blue blood elves, listen carefully. This lord will drink your blood one by one and kill all the blue blood elves." Kakik, presumptuous. Before the ear-piercing voice faded away, an angry roar resounded, and a figure soared into the sky. It was Zhou Xiao. Eh. The blood-slaughtered spirit was surprised, and then it laughed loudly. "Human warrior, you are not this lord's match. This lord advises you to mind your own business." "Monster, I am the commander of the Fire Beacon Border Cities Guards, Zhou Xiao. How can this commander sit idly by and watch you kill innocent people at the border city?" With an angry roar, Zhou Xiao directly attacked with a palm strike. Suddenly, a dazzling white light shot out from the void, and the aura of light filled the air, giving people a feeling that the clouds and mist had dispersed. Light, attribute, origin, soul. Seeing this scene, Nietion's gaze trembled slightly. He didn't expect Zhou Xiao to be an extremely rare light, attribute, origin, soul warrior. The blood-slaughtered spirit was surprised again, and then the black energy around it became violent, condensing into a huge ghost face in the void. It opened its mouth as if it wanted to devour everything. Boom! Up in the sky, the power of light and darkness collided, causing the heaven and earth to tremble. Not good. Seeing Zhou Xiao and the blood-slaughtered spirit fighting, Nietion's expression suddenly changed. Zhou Xiao was very strong, but the blood-slaughtered spirit seemed to have devoured some kind of power and was actually at the 9th level of the heaven realm. Zhou Xiao might not be its match. Before Nietion's voice faded, Zhou Xiao felt a suffocating pressure rushing towards him. He immediately frowned and quickly retreated. "Human warrior, the consequence of meddling in other people's business is death. This lord will devour you." However, at this time, a sharp roar resounded, and the dark aura suddenly became more intense. The strange ghost face in the sky actually pressed down, wanting to directly devour Zhou Xiao. Zhou Xiao, Zhang Qiao, who was standing to the side, exclaimed. He wanted to take action, but it was already too late. At the moment when Zhou Xiao's life was at stake, a sudden change occurred. Roar! In the void, a dragon's roar shook the heaven and earth, and then a thunder dragon that was thousands of meters long appeared. A huge dragon's might surged between the heaven and earth, and the power of thunder filled the sky. "It's a dragon!" The people on the ground exclaimed, completely unable to believe the scene in front of them. Under the gaze of countless people, the thunder dragon rolled out, and the terrifying dragon energy was like a solid substance, pressing down on the dark clouds in the sky. The blood-slaughtered spirit was suddenly stunned. Sensing a familiar aura, he turned around and saw a thunder dragon appear. He couldn't help but exclaim, "Silver-haired kid, it's you again." The blood-slaughtered spirit was too familiar with Nietion's aura. Even if he didn't see Nietion's figure, he already knew that the latter had appeared. Even if the blood-slaughtered spirit still wanted to kill Zhou Xiao, he would be hit by the thunder dragon, and the final result was that both he and Zhou Xiao would die. Chapter 962. The bloody spirit-slaughtered spirit gave up on attacking Zhou Xiao and chose to fight with Nietion. The ghostly face, formed by the power of the blood demon, was about to collide with the thunder dragon. The crowd looked at the void and held their breath, not daring to breathe loudly. Their hearts were in their throats. Boom! With a loud bang, the two huge forces collided with each other. The surging power spread out, and a terrifying invisible wave of air surged in all directions. The crowd felt a tightness in their chests, almost suffocating. Many people couldn't bear the pressure and vomited blood. In the sky, there was chaos. The power of the blood demon and the thunder dragon devoured each other, and the space was filled with violent power. After a long time, The black brilliance and the dazzling lightning gradually dissipated, and a figure slowly appeared. It was Nietian. At this moment, Nietian looked a little embarrassed, and his body was covered in blood. However, he was not seriously injured. His body shook slightly, and the blood on his body was washed away. The crowd looked at the sky and saw only Nietian's figure. The cloud of black chi had disappeared. That monster is dead. The crowd was surprised, and they were even more shocked by Nietian's strength. Even Zhou Xiao wasn't a match for that demon, yet Nietian was able to kill it with a single strike. His strength was too terrifying. However, at this time, Nietian did not relax at all. His nerves were tense, and he carefully sensed the surrounding space. Swish! Suddenly, Nietian turned around and stabbed out with his sword. The sword light whistled out and bombarded the void, but it made a muffled sound. Ah! The next moment, a miserable scream sounded, and then the harsh voice of the bloody spirit slaughtered spirit could be heard. Human boy, we will meet again. We will meet again. Niet Tianling sneered, and the corner of his mouth raised a touch of killing intent. In the collision just now, the bloody spirit slaughtered spirit did not die at all, nor did it escape. Instead, it lurked in the void, waiting for the moment when Nietian was careless to launch a sneak attack. Unfortunately, Nietian had the starry eyes, and his divine sense was fused with the divine glyphs, so his perception was beyond imagination. Even the top assassin would not be able to hide in front of him. Feeling that the bloody spirit slaughtered spirit's aura had completely disappeared, Nietian's body trembled, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. His face was slightly pale, but his aura was as steady as usual. He bitterly smiled and said, "The power of the blood demon is truly powerful. If it wasn't for my 9-star dragon vein physique, I'm afraid that I wouldn't be able to endure the power of the blood demon." "Brother Nya, are you all right?" Zhou Xiao came to Tian and asked with concern. Tian. Niet Tian, I spirit Tian said. Nietan, and Tian. Previously, he had regarded Nietian as an enemy. Never would he have thought that Nietian would actually save Zhou Xiao's life. Zhang Chao also knew that Nietian's strength was far above his. Back in a restaurant, if Nietian wanted to, he would have been a corpse. After a while, Nietian and the others returned to the restaurant. Zhou Xiao asked for the best VIP room. "Mr. Nya, thank you for your help. If not, I would have died," Zhou Xiao said sincerely. Thinking of the scene just now, he still felt a lingering fear. Fortunately, Nietian acted in time. Otherwise, even if Zhou Xiao did not die, he would have been seriously injured. "It's nothing, don't worry about it." Nietian smiled casually and asked, "Commander Zhou, are you from the Sumeru world?" "Yes." Zhou Xiao nodded slightly. Of course, he knew what Nietian was thinking. He nodded and said, "Those are just empty titles." Nietian immediately understood that Zhou Xiao was the most talented martial artist in the Sumeru world. However, Zhou Xiao's talents were far from being comparable to Nietian's. "Commander Zhou, why are the two of you here?" Nietian's eyes swept past Zhou Xiao and Zhang Chao as he directly asked. Zhou Xiao did not hide it and said, "Our Zhou clan and the Fire Beacon Border City Lord are old friends. My father told me to come here to train. As for brother Zhang Chao, let him explain himself." "I came to challenge Zhou Xiao." Zhang Chao was a bit carefree and smiled. "But I have lost to Zhou Xiao 13 times. As long as I don't defeat him, I will always follow him. So that's how it is." Nietian nodded his head with a smile. He didn't expect Zhou Xiao's clan to be so strange to have such a relationship with the Fire Beacon Border City Lord. However, this Zhang Chao was quite interesting. He only wanted to defeat Zhou Xiao. According to Nietian's speculation, if Zhou Xiao didn't go easy on him, then Zhang Chao would have a hard time defeating him. It seemed like these two were bound together for the rest of their lives. Zhang Chao was very curious and asked Nietian, "Mr. Nya, what is that monster? Why is it so powerful?" Nietian took a deep breath and no longer hid anything. He told them about the heavenly demon cult and finally said, "The truth is I don't know the background of the blood-slaughtered spirit, I only know that it is an ancient blood demon. An ancient demon. Zhou Xiao and Zhang Chao were shocked. Nie Tian solemnly nodded his head and solemnly said, "Don't worry, this matter started because of me. I will definitely eliminate the blood-slaughtered spirit." Although the blood-slaughtered spirit coming to Fire Beacon Border City to kill the Blue Blood Elves was not directly related to Nie Tian, it was still because of him that the blood-slaughtered spirit escaped from the Heavenly Demon Palace, so he was responsible for this matter. "Thank you, Mr. Nie." Zhou Xiao and Zhang Chao were very grateful and said, "If possible, we are willing to lend Mr. Nie a hand." "Sure." Nie Tian smiled faintly and agreed without hesitation. Zhou Xiao and Zhang Chao were not weak and could at least protect Xiu Shan and Mo Rushi. After leaving the restaurant, Nie Tian's group went to Zhou Xiao and Zhang Chao's residence to stay for the night. The blood-slaughtered spirit was heavily injured by Nie Tian and shouldn't appear for a while. In the small courtyard, Nie Tian murmured, "Why is the blood-slaughtered spirit crazily killing the Blue Blood Elves? Also, its strength increased a lot. Could it be because it absorbed the power of the Blue Blood Elves?" "Nie Tian, your guess is correct." At this time, the Sword Elder's voice suddenly appeared. "The blood demon can absorb the power of the Blue Blood Elves to strengthen itself. The blood-slaughtered spirit seems to want to increase its strength and devour its host's soul." Devour the host's soul? Nie Tian was slightly surprised and immediately thought of a person. Eugene. After the Heavenly Demon Cult was destroyed, Eugene had never appeared. It seemed like the blood-slaughtered spirit took her away. The blood-slaughtered spirit was eager to increase its strength so that it could devour Eugene's soul and borrow its body to be reborn. "We must stop it." Nie Tian's eyes narrowed as he said in a serious tone. The blood-slaughtered spirit was bloodthirsty. Once it was reborn, its strength would definitely increase. Perhaps it could use this opportunity to break through the planar restriction and reach the Heavenly Emperor realm. If the blood-slaughtered spirit really became a Heavenly Emperor, then it would be a huge threat to the entire Shumi world. How do I find it? Nie Tian suddenly thought of a problem and couldn't help but frown. The blood-slaughtered spirit was very powerful. As long as it didn't come out, it would be very difficult for Nie Tian to find it. Chapter 963. It's true. Hearing the old man's voice, Nie Tian's heart was filled with joy. The old man chuckled and said, "Earlier, when you were fighting against the blood-slaughter spirit, I left a strand of sword rune power on his body. No matter where he runs to, he will not be able to escape from my palm." Nie Tian was a bit speechless. He didn't expect this old man to be so cunning. He also didn't expect the sword rune to have this kind of effect. "Little guy, the power of the sword rune is very frightening. The current you is still unable to control this power, so I won't tell you anymore." The old man proudly smiled and immediately said, "The blood-slaughter spirit has left Fire Beacon Border City and should be heading towards the snowy ice field." He also wants to go to the snowy ice field? Nie Tian was surprised for a moment. Then he immediately smiled. What a coincidence. There's no need to waste time looking for him. The snowy ice field was the home of the demon race, so it was not strange for the blood-slaughter spirit to go there. The corner of Nie Tian's mouth curved up. He was worried that chasing after the blood-slaughter spirit would waste his time, but this was perfect. "Let's take a good rest first. We will depart for the snowy ice field tomorrow." Nie Tian nodded with a smile and was about to return to his room to rest. However, at this time, a heart-wrenching scream came. Xiu Shan. Hearing this voice, Nie Tian's expression suddenly changed. This was Xiu Shan's voice. Boom! In the next second, a monstrous dragon shadow soared to the sky as a dense dragon aura filled the air. Nie Tian's eyes slightly narrowed as he immediately reacted and exclaimed, "The saber dragon arm is about to unseal the azure dragon." At the same time, in another small courtyard, Xiu Shan stood in the courtyard with his body emitting a surging dragon aura. His left arm stretched out and turned into a dragon arm that was several meters long. What was even more strange was that the dragon arm was still expanding and the dragon scales and dragon claws became even more realistic. An extremely surging divine dragon aura rose up, condensing into the shadow of an azure dragon around Qiu Shan's body. Ah! Qiu Shan felt as if a divine dragon was wreaking havoc in his body. The immense pain made him howl uncontrollably. Autumn Mountain. At this time, Nietian arrived. Seeing the scene before him, his eyes trembled violently. Qiu Shan's dragon blade arm suddenly expanded. Dragon Qi overflowed, and the shadow of a dragon appeared. This was the sign of the Azure Dragon Seal being activated. The fifth Azure Dragon Seal. Nietian gazed at the illusory image of the Azure Dragon that enveloped Qiu Shan. It was actually several hundred meters long. The dragon's shadow was shocking, and the dragon's qi was violent. While Qiu Shan was in seclusion in the 3,000 small worlds, he had just opened the fourth Azure Dragon Seal. The fifth Blue Dragon Seal should only be activated when his strength advanced to around the 9th level of Heavenly Evolution. Why did it activate in advance? Nietian used his divine sense to check, and his face stiffened. He said in surprise, Qiu Shan's cultivation. After being stunned for a few seconds, Nietian finally reacted. He discovered that Qiu Shan's strength had actually reached the 9th level of Heavenly Evolution. Just during the day, Qiu Shan was only at the 2nd level of Heavenly Evolution. How could his strength increase by 7 levels in half a day? Even a 9th-tier spirit pill did not have such an effect. Could it be? Suddenly, Nietian thought of something. His pupils suddenly contracted, and he blurted out 2 words. Dragon Ring. Nietian had previously handed the dragon rings he obtained from Yin Zishu and Yu Jingji to Qiu Shan for safekeeping, hoping that the latter could break the strange soul imprint on the dragon rings. After all, Qiu Shan was someone with a dragon blade arm. His ability to sense dragon qi was not inferior to Nietian's at all. My body. At this time, Qiu Shan screamed again. His left arm was still expanding, and the entire courtyard was filled with surging dragon qi. Nietian's guess was right. Qiu Shan had unintentionally broken the soul seal on the dragon ring. Moreover, the dragon qi inside the dragon ring was directly absorbed by the dragon blade arm, causing his strength to skyrocket to directly soar to the 9th level of Heavenly Evolution. Qiu Shan absorbed the power of the dragon ring. His strength increased, and the Azure Dragon Seal opened. This should be a good thing. Why is he in so much pain? Nietian frowned. He couldn't understand what was happening. Nietian. At this time, Mo Rushi arrived. She couldn't help but exclaim when she saw Qiu Shan's crazed state. This is... Zhou Xiao and Zhang Chao also appeared. They were stunned when they saw the scene in front of them. Nietian's gaze gradually darkened. He forced himself to calm down and spread out his divine sense to carefully sense the situation inside Qiu Shan's body. I want to kill. At this time, Qiu Shan suddenly became violent. His eyes became bloodshot, and his entire body was filled with killing intent. He roared and directly punched out. Immediately, a huge dragon shadow surged toward Nietian. Oh no! Nietian's heart sank. A layer of red light flashed across his body. His ultimate Fire Scarlet Heaven armor was activated, and he forcibly withstood Qiu Shan's fatal blow. Bang! With a muffled sound, Nietian took a few steps back and then spat out a mouthful of dirty blood. Nietian! Mo Rushi exclaimed when she saw this. Don't come over. Nietian immediately waved his hand and shouted in a deep voice, Everyone, back off! Qiu Shan suddenly lost his rationality and became violent. This situation was too strange. Nietian knew that if Qiu Shan had the slightest bit of rationality, he would never attack him. Without a doubt, someone was controlling Qiu Shan. Nietian, his soul is being controlled. At this time, the Sword Elder's voice also sounded. Yes. Nietian nodded. He vaguely understood something. After he obtained the dragon ring, he realized that there was a soul seal on the dragon ring, so he could not probe the information inside the dragon ring. Nietian thought that the dragon ring was nothing, so he handed it to Qiu Shan for safekeeping. Perhaps Qiu Shan could absorb some dragon energy from the dragon ring and quickly increase his strength. He did not expect this scene to happen. Not dead, Xioshan's eyes were crimson. When he stretched out his dragon arms, they were actually 5 to 6 meters long. His entire being was violent and crazy, like a murderous demon. Nietian looked at Xioshan, and his eyes darkened. This was not Xioshan's voice. He was indeed being controlled. Although Xioshan only had the strength of a heavenly evolution realm 9th level heavenly evolution realm, the blade dragon arm that had activated the 5th heavenly dragon seal was too terrifying. Even if Nietian took the attack of the blade dragon arm head-on, he would still be injured. Who are you? Nietian's eyes were cold as he growled. Nietian, it seems that I have underestimated you by letting Yin Zishu kill you. Xioshan's eyes flickered with a sharp, murderous intent. He said coldly, since I have personally made a move, I will definitely not let you live. You are the myriad demon dragon chief. Nietian's voice trembled, and the anger in his eyes intensified. Yin Zishu was the high priest of the myriad demon dragon abyss. The person who could order him had to be the myriad demon dragon chief. At this time, Nietian finally understood everything. It was not Xioshan who broke the soul seal on the dragon ring. Instead, it was the myriad demon dragon chief who broke the seal and allowed the power within the dragon ring to flow into the blade dragon arm. Then, it controlled Xioshan and turned him into a murderous blade. Chapter 964. Myriad Demon Dragon Head. What a powerful move. Nietian understood everything. Killing intent rose from his body, and his eyes flickered with a fierce light. He never thought that the myriad demon dragon head would use the dragon ring to control Xioshan and use this method to kill him. Nietian guessed correctly. The soul seal on the dragon ring was set up by the myriad demon dragon head. Apart from him, no one else could break it. This was the method the myriad demon dragon head used to control its subordinates. Anyone who possessed the dragon ring would be under its control. Nietian, you're indeed very strong, and you're also very smart. It's a pity that your opponent is me. Xioshan's eyes were like poison. He laughed coldly and said, since activating the 5th blue dragon seal can't kill you, then let's try the power of the 6th blue dragon seal. A dragon ring appeared in Xioshan's hand. A black aura surged out, and the soul seal on the dragon ring was broken. Boom! The next moment, a surging dragon aura surged out of the dragon ring. It was like a raging wave, vast and mighty. Xioshan raised the dragon arm, and the endless dragon aura was instantly absorbed. His strength soared again. Bastard! Nietian roared angrily, but he did not dare to attack Xioshan. The myriad demon dragon head broke the 2nd dragon ring's soul seal, causing Xioshan's strength to soar again. It actually wanted him to activate the 6th blue dragon seal. As the dragon aura was continuously absorbed by the dragon arm, Xioshan's aura skyrocketed and his strength rose steadily. 1st level of heaven being, 2nd level of heaven being, 3rd level of heaven being, 4th level of heaven being, 5th level of heaven being. In just the blink of an eye, Xioshan's strength soared from the 9th level of heaven being to the 5th level of heaven being. It increased by half a major realm. Yin Zishu and Yu Jingji's dragon rings both had 4-star dragon aura. The power contained within was already so terrifying. It was hard to imagine what kind of terrifying power was contained within the 9-star dragon ring. At this moment, Zhou Xiao came to Nietian's side and shouted, Mr. Nia, he has already lost his mind. We must kill him. Xioshan was absorbing the dragon aura. This was the best time to kill him. But Nietian stood where he was and did not make a move. Once Xioshan's strength stabilized, it would be too late. No! Nietian roared angrily. His entire body exuded a violent rage as he roared, He is my friend. No one is allowed to kill him. The person standing in front of Nietian was Xioshan, someone who had gone through fire and water with him. How could he kill him? Ha ha ha! Xioshan laughed arrogantly at this moment. His eyes were filled with disdain as he mocked. He's someone by your side, but now he's become my killing tool. If you don't kill him now, he will kill you later. Impossible. Nietian bellowed angrily. His immense anger made his entire body tremble uncontrollably. Pa! 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 Right at this moment, Qiushan's left arm swelled up again. The dragon scales fell off and were replaced by new dragon scales. His aura became even wilder, and his entire arm became even more vigorous and powerful. Nietian, prepare to die. In the blink of an eye, the sixth Azure Dragon seal on Qiushan's dragon arm was activated. He roared crazily and punched out. Majestic dragon Qi surged out like a raging wave. 1,000-meter-long Azure Dragon shadow appeared and pressed down on Nietian. The surrounding houses could not withstand the pressure of the dragon shadow and collapsed into ruins. What a powerful force! Zhou Xiao could not help but tremble when he felt the terrifying pressure in the void. This level of power was too terrifying. He could not withstand it. Mo Rushi and the others retreated and looked at Nietian nervously. Nietian stared at the Azure Dragon Phantom that was charging at him, his eyes filled with determination. Qiushan's current strength was too terrifying. If he continued to defend, he would definitely be seriously injured. With this thought in mind, Nietian no longer hesitated. He released the power of thunder from his body and formed a sea of thunder behind him that stretched for thousands of meters. From afar, it looked like a giant thunder net. Roar! In the next moment, an earth-shattering dragon roar sounded. The thunder dragon reappeared and pounced directly. Boom! Above the void, the two dragons collided head-on. A loud explosion sounded in the void, and the entire sky shook violently. Countless spatial cracks appeared and devoured the surrounding dragon Qi. Just at that moment, Nietian's figure flashed as he dashed towards Qiushan and shouted, "Qiushan, wake up! Look carefully, I am Nietian." His furious roar resounded in Qiushan's ears, but the latter turned a deaf ear. "Nietian, don't waste your energy. I've already taken control of his soul. For the rest of his life, he can only be a killing tool for me." The dragon head's voice echoed out, filled with insolence and violence. "Don't even think about it," Nietian roared. He would not allow Qiushan to become the myriad demon dragon head's killing weapon. "Nietian, you only have two choices. Either kill him or be killed by him. Other than that, you have no other choice." The myriad demon dragon head shouted wildly, and the dragon Qi around its body became even more violent. Boom! Boom! In the void, violent explosions sounded continuously, and the battle between the two giant dragons continued. Nietian felt that the elemental energy in his body was rapidly consumed, and the sea of thunder behind him would not last for long. The power of the blade dragon arm was too strong. Even if Nietian fought with all his strength, it was still a bit difficult. On the other hand, Qiushan's fighting spirit was getting wilder and wilder, and the power in his body was almost bursting. "Nietian, do you have a way to control him? I can use the power of the sword pattern to drive out his soul." At this time, the Sword Elder's voice sounded slightly nervous. "Okay," Nietian agreed, and his eyes became firm. He already had a plan in mind. Roar! Almost at the same time, there was a sudden cry in the void. The Thunder Dragon could not withstand the bombardment of the Azure Dragon and was instantly defeated, turning into endless thunder power and dissipating. Nietian's eyes couldn't help but tighten. The power of the Blade Dragon arm was really strong. Even the Thunder Dragon could not withstand it. This was only the 6 Azure Dragon seals that were opened. If all 9 Azure Dragon seals were opened, the power would definitely be unbearable even for a Heavenly Emperor realm martial artist. "Nietian, is this all you have?" The myriad demon dragon head roared, and with a strong sense of mockery, it said, "My next move, I will take your life." Ha! An extremely arrogant and wild laughter rang out, but Nietian turned a deaf ear to it. He retracted his aura, and the anger and killing intent disappeared. Only the determination in his eyes remained unchanged. "Die!" The myriad demon dragon head's violent voice sounded, and the blade dragon arm punched out. In the void, a majestic dragon's roar suddenly sounded. In the next moment, the terrifying Azure Dragon swooped down from the void and a huge aura bloomed in the space. At this moment, the heaven and earth seemed to collapse. Chapter 965. The myriad demonic dragon head controlled Autumn Mountain and launched its strongest attack on Yetion, determined to kill him in one blow. Yetion stood in the void, his aura converging, but the boundary origin array in his body was operating at an extreme speed. He was ready to burst out the most terrifying power in the shortest time possible to resist the fatal blow of the heaven-defying dragon soul. Yetion. Mo Rushi looked at the scene in the sky from the side, her little face extremely nervous, and she did not even dare to look at the next moment. She could not imagine how she would survive if something happened to Yetion. Zhou Xiao and Zhang Qiao were also extremely nervous, not daring to breathe loudly, very worried for Yetion. Have you given up? The myriad demonic dragon head saw that Yetion did not move, thinking that the latter had given up in despair. It laughed arrogantly and shouted, "In front of me, all resistance is futile. Obediently accept your death is the wisest choice." Boom! The next moment, the heaven-defying dragon soul swooped down, and the mighty dragon might filled the air, as if the space was about to be torn apart. This power was too strong, blasting and destroying everything in its path. Heaven's shrouding totem, come out! The space around Yetion was shrouded by dragon chi and directly solidified. At this moment, endless starlight suddenly gushed out from behind him, filling the space in an instant, like a falling galaxy, illuminating the entire night sky. In an instant, the stars shone brightly, and the night directly turned into day. The vast power of the stars circulated in the space, condensing into a vast and boundless giant starlight net, which was the heaven-shrouding totem. The moment the heaven-shrouding totem appeared, a vast power filled the void, and the space actually froze. The huge heaven-defying dragon soul was affected by a mighty force, and its huge body stagnated. This is the time. Yetion's eyes were like fire, and he silently said in his heart, the heaven-shrouding totem behind him instantly moved at an extremely fast speed. The space suddenly trembled, and the momentum of heaven and earth was completely changed, as if the world was distorted. Huh? The myriad demon dragon's head felt a tremendous power descend upon it. Its brows furrowed as an instinctive fear surged in its heart. This feeling of fear caused his pupils to contract, and his whole body to tremble inexplicably. Boom! In the next moment, the totem shrouded the sky. Like a giant hand, it directly imprisoned the space and trapped the defiant dragon soul. Roar! Now that the dragon was trapped, it immediately went berserk. It raised its head to the sky and roared. Its body rolled, wanting to break free from the totem. Unfortunately, even the heaven-defying dragon soul was suppressed in the barrier. The surrounding space was locked, and the huge dragon body could not even move, let alone break through the barrier. What a powerful barrier power! The myriad demon dragon's head could feel a massive power wrapping around its dragon arm. It was unable to exert even the slightest bit of its strength. Immediately, cold sweat broke out on its forehead, and panic filled its eyes. Boom! After successfully trapping the heaven-defying dragon's soul, Yetion let out a long breath and appeared in front of Qiushan. But at this moment, Qiushan was completely under the control of the myriad demon dragon head. "I'll kill you!" Seeing Yetion overexerting himself, the 10,000 demonic dragon head let out a shrill roar. But before it could attack, it was firmly suppressed by Yetion's aura. Unable to use the power of the dragon blade arm, Qiushan's strength was greatly weakened, and he was completely no match for Yetion. Yetion, even if your ward can suppress the dragon-bladed arm, so what? The person in front of you is already under my control. His soul no longer belongs to him. Do you dare to kill him? The 10,000 demonic dragon head immediately calmed down and shouted in a frenzy. Even if Qiushan couldn't kill Yetion, would Yetion kill Qiushan? Obviously not. If Yetion wanted to kill Qiushan, he would have done it when he was absorbing the dragon chi. There was no need to wait until now. Myriad demon dragon head, I won't kill my friends, but I will kill you. A cold smile rose from the corners of Nyetian's mouth. Immediately, a glaring starlight surged out from his eyes, and an enormous mental energy deterrent spread out. Before the 10,000 demonic dragon head could react, it felt an enormous pressure. It was unable to bear it, and it immediately screamed in pain. Sword Elder, Nyetian said in a deep voice. His absolute tremble couldn't force the 10,000 demonic dragon head's soul strength out of Qiushan's body. What happened next would depend on Sword Elder. The 10,000 demonic dragon head's soul strength was extremely strong. Nyetian couldn't even break the soul seal on the dragon ring. In just an instant, the 10,000 demonic dragon head regained its consciousness, and it became even more arrogant. It directly shouted, "You want to force out my soul strength with a mere mental energy attack? You're simply ridiculous." Ha ha! The 10,000 demonic dragon had originally wanted to laugh wildly, but just as it opened its mouth, it stopped abruptly. In the next moment, it became a startled cry. This is... The 10,000 demonic dragon had suddenly felt a strange force enter Qiushan's body. It brought with it a powerful pressure, causing its soul to tremble. Immediately after, the force became stronger and stronger. It was like a ferocious beast, crazily roaring and wreaking havoc. The soul rune that the 10,000 demonic dragon head had imprinted in Qiushan's body couldn't withstand the impact of this force, and it began to slowly collapse. Impossible. This is absolutely impossible. The 10,000 demonic dragon head shouted in panic. It never thought that Nyetian would have a way to destroy its soul strength. The sword rune is working. When Nyetian saw the 10,000 demonic dragon head's reaction, a hint of surprise appeared in his eyes. He could feel that Sword Elder seemed to have stimulated some kind of strange power contained in the sword rune, which directly destroyed the 10,000 demonic dragon head soul rune. The power of the sword rune was indeed mysterious. Nyetian couldn't use such power at all. Bastard, what kind of power is this? The 10,000 demonic dragon head felt that its soul rune was becoming weaker and weaker. It completely panicked and shouted crazily. The power of the sword rune became stronger and stronger, and the soul rune that was imprinted in Qiushan's body was instantly shattered. "Get the hell out of here!" Sword Elder roared, and the power of the sword rune increased again. The myriad demonic dragon head's soul rune was bombarded by a destructive force, and it was completely destroyed. "Nyetian, I will definitely not let you go." At the last moment of its life, the 10,000 demonic dragon had let out a mournful cry, and then disappeared. Almost at the same time, Qiushan's arm quickly returned to its original shape. His body went soft, and he collapsed to the ground. "I finally succeeded." Sword Elder let out a long breath, and his body became a lot dimmer. It seemed that using the sword rune was not a small burden for him. "Qiushan." Nyetian lifted Qiushan up. He felt that the latter's breath was very stable, and there was nothing strange. Only then did he feel relieved. "Don't worry, he's fine. He'll be fine after a good sleep." Sword Elder smiled and said, "This guy also benefited from a disaster. He actually directly absorbed the power of 2 dragon rings." "Thank you, Sword Elder." Nyetian nodded with a smile. Qiushan could be considered lucky this time. If it weren't for the 10,000 demonic dragon head, it would have been impossible for him to absorb the power of 2 dragon rings, and it would have been even more impossible for his strength to directly increase by a realm. He even opened the 6th Azure Dragon Seal. Chapter 966. The next morning, Nyetian woke up very early and went to Qiushan's residence. He was worried about Qiushan's situation, so he wanted to take a look as soon as possible. "Mr." Qiushan walked out of the room and just happened to see Nyetian. He was slightly excited and said, "My strength rose to Heaven Tier 5. Nyetian nodded with a smile. It seemed that Qiushan did not remember what happened last night. This was not a bad thing for him. Qiushan did not have any memory of last night's events. He only vaguely remembered that the soul seal on the dragon ring was suddenly unsealed. Then dragon chi poured into the dragon blade arm. He did not remember anything after that. You absorbed the power of 2 dragon rings. Your strength naturally soared. Yet Tian smiled faintly, not planning to speak of last night's events. Xioshan's strength sword was a great thing for Nye Tian. Recalling the scene of last night, Nye Tian still had lingering fears. If he did not have the power of stars in his body, he simply could not beat Xioshan's match. The power of the dragon blade arm was too horrifying. So that's how it is. Xioshan's head was dizzy, and he did not ask anymore. A moment later, Imo Rushi's figure also appeared. Nye Tian prepared to bid farewell to Zhou Xiao and Zhang Chao and immediately set off for Sub-Zero Ice Field. Mr. Nye, you're going to Sub-Zero Ice Field? Zhou Xiao was stunned when he heard Nye Tian wanted to go to Sub-Zero Ice Field and almost cried out in surprise. Is there a problem? Nye Tian was also stunned. He knew that Zhou Xiao was a relatively calm person. There must be a reason for such a reaction. Mr. Nye, you don't know, but Sub-Zero Ice Field stopped interacting with the Sumer world several decades ago. Human martial artists are not allowed to set foot there. Zhou Xiao's expression was somewhat nervous as he said, there were many martial artists who wanted to go to Sub-Zero Ice Field before, but they all died on the way. I heard that the Fiend race people set up many killing arrays on the road to Sub-Zero Ice Field. No one can pass through. There's actually such a thing. Hearing Zhou Xiao's explanation, Nye Tian couldn't help but frown. This was something he didn't expect. Nye Tian wasn't afraid of these killing arrays, but since the demon race didn't allow human cultivators to set foot in the Snow Domain ice field, then even if he could successfully enter the ice field, he would still be hunted down by the demon race. If that was the case, things would be a little troublesome. Mr. Nye, are you really going to the Sub-Zero Glacier? Just as Nye Tian was frowning, Zhang Chao suddenly asked. His eyes shone with a strange light, as if he had something to say. Yes. Nye Tian nodded solemnly and said, the ancient blood demon that slaughtered the blue elves fled to the Sub-Zero icy field, and I also have a very important matter that requires me to take a trip there. Do you have any ideas? Since Zhang Chao suddenly spoke, there must be a way. Yes. After hesitating for a moment, Zhang Chao's eyes flashed with a strange light. After pondering for a long time, he finally said, the Sub-Zero Glacier has not interacted with the Meru world for a long time, but there's a caravan that can freely travel between the Sub-Zero Glacier and the Meru world. A caravan? Nye Tian was slightly taken aback, but he immediately understood. The Sub-Zero Glacier and the Meru world did not interact with each other, but there were definitely some items that needed to be exchanged, which was why such a special caravan had appeared. We can sneak into this caravan and enter the Sub-Zero Glacier, right? Nye Tian was very anxious and asked directly. It's very difficult. Zhang Chao's face slightly darkened as he said, the captain of the caravan is a dwarf. He is a cruel and merciless person, and rumor has it that his family died at the hands of humans, so he hates human martial artists very much. You can't let humans join the caravan. I have to try. Nye Tian nodded solemnly. He had to go to the Sub-Zero Glacier. All right. Zhang Chao nodded slightly and said, I know a demon dweller from the caravan. I'll take you to him. Under Zhang Chao's guidance, Nye Tian and the others arrived at a large market. After a few turns, they finally arrived at the caravan. Caravan. Nye Tian looked at the signboard in front of the caravan and couldn't help but smile. This name was quite interesting. Who are you people? As soon as they appeared, an angry shout rang out. Several martial artists appeared and stopped Nye Tian and the others. Nye Tian's divine sense swept over these people and found that they were all Heaven Realm martial artists. Moreover, these people were much taller than normal humans, at least 3 meters tall. They were the demon dwellers. Nye Tian had heard that the blood of the demon dwellers was dirty black, but he didn't know whether it was true or not. Zhang Chao stepped forward and said carefully, My name is Zhang Chao, a friend of Lord Luo Zhang. I have something important to discuss with him. Please inform him. Wait here, one of the demon dwellers said in a low voice and turned around to enter the caravan. A moment later, The demon dweller appeared again and waved his hand, gesturing for Zhang Chao and the others to enter. Nie Tian took a deep breath and followed Zhang Chao into the caravan. At the same time, he reminded Xiao Shan to protect Mo Rushi. Nie Tian had a faint premonition that this caravan was not ordinary. It gave him a very insecure feeling. When they arrived at the caravan's hall, they directly entered a room in the inner hall. "Everyone, please." The demon dweller who led the way smiled strangely. He couldn't help but glance at Mo Rushi before he turned around and left. Nie Tian's eyes darkened. He didn't like the way the demon dweller looked at Mo Rushi. After entering the room, Nie Tian saw a huge demonic person lying on a huge reclining chair. His entire body was almost naked, and his muscles were exposed, giving off a sense of power. Beside him, there were 7 or 8 girls serving him with all their heart, and they were all human girls. Seeing the arrival of Nie Tian's group, the demon dweller's huge body slightly stood up. His gloomy gaze swept over them, and he said, "Zhang Chao, do you have any business with this president?" His tone was low and revealed traces of oppression. At the same time, it carried disdain and condescension. This demon dweller was called Luo Zheng, the vice president of the Fuer Chamber of Commerce. "President Luo, I have a small matter to trouble you with." Zhang Chao cautiously spoke. He was a bit nervous in front of Luo Zheng. The majority of people at Fire Beacon Border City knew about the Fuer Chamber of Commerce, but very few knew its true background. They only thought that it was an ordinary caravan. However, Zhang Chao knew that there was a great power hidden behind it. Even the Fire Beacon Border City Lord had to be very respectful when he saw Luo Zheng. Bang! At this time, a maid carelessly knocked over a wine cup, causing it to shatter. The maid turned pale from fright. She kneeled on the ground while shivering, but she didn't dare to say anything. Trash! Luo Zheng's expression suddenly changed. He actually lifted his leg and kicked the maid. Ah! Seeing this scene, Nie Tian's eyes suddenly became serious. This maid was only an ordinary girl, so if Luo Zheng's kick landed, she would definitely die on the spot. Without any hesitation, Nie Tian reached out his palm and unleashed a shockwave through the air. Chapter 967. Nie Tian's sudden attack took everyone by surprise, and the atmosphere fell into a dead silence. Luo Zheng was surprised. A hint of killing intent flashed in his eyes. He stood up and waved his hand while staring at Nie Tian. The maids quickly left as if they had been pardoned. "Who are you?" Luo Zheng asked coldly. His entire body released a cold chi. Nie Tian looked at the demon in front of him. The demon was 4 meters tall when he stood up. His aura was very strong, giving people a strong sense of oppression. He could sense that Luo Zheng was in the 6th sky human realm. Coupled with his demon body, he could fight against a human 7th sky human realm warrior. "I have a favor to ask of you," Nie Tian replied calmly. His eyes were so calm that it was frightening. "A favor?" Luo Zheng smiled coldly. "Brat, do you know that this is the Fuer Chamber of Commerce? How dare you attack me here? I really don't know if you're stupid or brave." "I want to go to the Sub-Zero ice field," Nie Tian said directly. He didn't want to waste time with Luo Zheng. Luo Zheng was too arrogant. If it wasn't for Nie Tian wanting to go to the Sub-Zero ice field, he would have been a corpse by now. "You want to go to the Sub-Zero ice field?" Luo Zheng smiled and said, "Go if you want to. I won't stop you. Why do you have to come here?" Luo Zheng this. Zhang Chao's face darkened. He didn't expect Nie Tian to save a maid. "Shut up." Suddenly, Luo Zheng roared in anger and released a murderous aura. He stared at Zhang Chao coldly and said, "You told him about the Fuer Chamber of Commerce. That alone is enough for me to kill you." Zhang Chao swallowed and didn't dare to say another word. "I forced him to say it," Nie Tianling said coldly. "I want to go to the Sub-Zero ice field. State your conditions." "Conditions?" Luo Zheng was taken aback for a moment. Then, he shifted his gaze to Mo Rushi and said with a wretched smile, "Leave this girl here, and I'll let you join the Fuer Chamber of Commerce." When Mo Rushi first entered the room, Luo Zheng had already noticed her, but he did not show it. Huh? Niet Tian was startled, his eyes flashing with extreme coldness. Zhou Xiao and Zhang Chao were stunned as well, and their expressions stiffened. They already knew of the relationship between Niet Tian and Mo Rushi, and they also knew of Niet Tian's terrifying strength. Luo Zheng had actually set his eyes on Mo Rushi. He was simply courting death. Courting death. Niet Tian's body trembled slightly. The killing intent in his eyes was extremely sharp. The corner of his mouth trembled as he spat out those two words. His entire person had turned into a sharp, murderous sword. Mo Rushi was his reverse scale, and anyone who touched it would die. Do you want to kill me? Luo Zheng sneered. He firmly believed that Niet Tian would not dare to attack him here. However, before his voice faded away, a murderous sword intent directly attacked him. Luo Zheng did not expect Niet Tian to suddenly attack him. He wanted to fight back, but it was too late. Puff! The next moment, the sound of flesh tearing was heard, and Luo Zheng's figure was sent flying backward. There was a fist-sized hole in his chest, and blood was gushing out. Niet Tian's figure moved, and he directly came to Luo Zheng's side. His killing intent condensed into a solid substance, and it enveloped the latter. You can't kill me? Luo Zheng's eyes suddenly narrowed, and his eyes were filled with despair. Only now did he realize that Niet Tian was even more ruthless than him. Niet Tian's eyes flashed with a strange light, and he said coldly, "Don't worry, I won't kill you. I'll keep you alive. You're still useful to me." Corpse Luo. After saying that, Niet Tian shouted, "I'm coming." The Corpse Luo Demon King responded. Of course, he understood what Niet Tian meant. He directly came out of the chaotic original coffin, and a ball of black light surged out of his body, turning into strange black runes that entered Luo Zheng's body. The moment the runes entered his body, Luo Zheng's body trembled, and he felt a deep sense of despair, as if his soul was instantly hollowed out. When he looked inside his body, he found that his meridians were densely packed with black runes, and it was extremely strange. What did you do to me?" Luo Zheng panicked, and his voice became shrill. "I left some toys in your body to let you experience the feeling of pain, just like this." The Corpse Luo Demon King chuckled. As soon as the Corpse Luo Demon King finished speaking, Luo Zheng screamed at the top of his lungs. His body was contorted due to the immense pain, and his face became ferocious. "That's enough." Niet Tian nodded slightly, indicating that the Corpse Luo Demon King could stop. The Corpse Luo Demon King nodded, looked at Luo Zheng with a sly smile, and said, "You have been hit by my Corpse Luo seal. With a single thought, I can turn you into ashes. Be obedient in the future. If you perform well, maybe I can remove the seal." After saying that, the Corpse Luo Demon King disappeared. Bang! At that moment, the door of the room suddenly opened, and dozens of demon warriors rushed in. All of them were filled with murderous intent. Niet Tianling looked at Luo Zheng coldly, and the latter's face was filled with pain, but he had no choice but to struggle to stand up. He shouted at the group of warriors, "What are you doing here? We heard your scream, so we thought something happened, so..." The leader of the demon warriors said hesitantly, "Get out." Before he could finish, he was interrupted by Luo Zheng's angry roar. The group of demon warriors was instantly confused, and after looking at each other, they immediately left. Not bad. Niet Tian looked at Luo Zheng and smiled lightly. "My lord, I beg you, please spare me." Luo Zheng finally became obedient this time. He knelt in front of Niet Tian and begged. The pain of his soul being torn apart was too horrifying, and he didn't want to suffer it a second time. "Whether I spare you or not, it will depend on your performance in the future." Niet Tian smiled lightly, a satisfied look on his face. Zhou Xiao and Zhang Chao were dumbfounded by what they saw. Niet Tian had defeated Luo Zheng in the blink of an eye, and even tamed him into submission. This was too strange. At that moment, Zhou Xiao and Zhang Chao realized that Niet Tian was far more terrifying than they had imagined. A faint smile appeared at the corner of Niet Tian's mouth as he asked, Sect Master Luo, I want to go to the domain of endless snow. No problem. Of course, there's no problem. My lord, you can go anytime. Luo Zheng nodded repeatedly. After that, Nie Tian learned that the Bu Air Chamber of Commerce would go to the snow ice field the next day. Nie Tian was not in a hurry, so he decided to leave with Luo Zheng the next day. After that, Nie Tian and the others left the Bu Air Chamber of Commerce. With Luo Zheng's help, going to the snow ice field shouldn't be a problem. Just as they arrived at the entrance of the Bu Air Chamber of Commerce, dozens of carriages appeared. Nie Tian looked at the carriages and saw that each carriage was pulling a huge box. There was a shielding formation around the box, and it seemed that there was something very precious inside. Chapter 968. Nie Tian's divine sense was very strong, coupled with his starry sky eyes. Even if the box was protected by a shielding spiritual formation, he could still sense a very terrifying aura. This aura, Nie Tian murmured in his heart, but his expression became more and more strange. He felt an inexplicable sense of familiarity with this aura, but he couldn't recall it at the moment. It's a sage's bone. At this moment, the Sword Elder's voice suddenly sounded. He was very excited. Nie Tian was stunned, but he immediately reacted and nodded heavily. That's right. The aura released from the huge box was the sage's bone. However, it seemed to be a little different from the sage's bone that Nie Tian had seen before. The aura was pure, without any yin qi. In the next moment, Nie Tian immediately understood that the sage's bone in the box was the sage's bone that had not been infected by evil arts. Yin Zishu's and Yu Jingji sage's bones were infected by evil arts, so they contained a kind of yin qi. The sage's bone in front of Nie Tian was not infected by evil arts. It was very pure and had a mysterious and terrifying aura. The sage's bone, what are you doing here? Nie Tian was quite surprised, but he suppressed his impulses and didn't show it. After all, this was the Bu Air Chamber of Commerce. He didn't know how many experts there were in the Chamber of Commerce, and his most important thing at the moment was to go to Sub-Zero Ice Field. After thinking about it, Nie Tian decided to leave first. He would ask Luo Zheng about the sage's bone when he set off tomorrow. After returning to his residence, Zhou Xiao and Zhang Chao came to Nie Tian's side. They both looked very solemn. What's wrong? Nie Tian smiled faintly, thinking that they were worried about the Bu Air Chamber of Commerce. So he said, Don't worry, I'm the one who caused the Bu Air Chamber of Commerce, so I'll bear the consequences myself. I won't involve you. Mr. Nie, you misunderstood. Zhou Xiao stepped forward and said, We are not afraid of implicating you, but we have made a decision to go to Sub-Zero Ice Field with you. You're going to Sub-Zero Ice Field too? Nie Tian was slightly stunned. This was something he did not expect. Yes. Zhang Chao firmly nodded his head and said, That blood demon killed so many blue blood elves. As the guards of Fire Beacon Border City, we have the responsibility to kill him. Even if he escapes to the ends of the earth, we will still chase after him. Brother Zhang Chao is right. Zhou Xiao also nodded his head and gravely said, Father told me to train at Fire Beacon Border City in hopes that I would be able to deal with any enemy. Even if that person is an ancient blood demon, I still cannot let him go. Zhou Xiao and Zhang Chao had been in Border City for several years and had developed feelings for the people here. Naturally, they were indignant when they saw the blood demons slaughtering the blue blood elves. All right, Nie Tian saw that the two of them were very determined, so he didn't stop them. He said, This time, we're going to enter the snowy ice field with the help of the Fuer Chamber of Commerce, so we can't bring too many people. Just the two of you are enough. There's no need to bring anyone else. That's only natural. Zhou Xiao and his companion exchanged glances before leaving. They prepared to set off tomorrow morning. Nie Tian and the others also went back to rest. Especially Qiu Shan, his strength had increased too quickly, and he urgently needed to stabilize his realm. After returning to his room, Nie Tian couldn't wait to ask, Sword Elder, will the saint's bones that are not infected by evil arts have a better effect? The effect he was talking about was, of course, the effect of awakening the saint's physique. Of course. The Sword Elder nodded and said, The saint's bones that are not infected by evil arts have a stronger vitality and are easier to refine. All right, Nietian nodded, a faint smile appearing at the corner of his mouth. He had already made up his mind to obtain the saint's bones from the Fuer Chamber of Commerce. The Sword Elder said that Mo Rushi needed a lot of saint's bones to awaken the saint's physique. Just 2 infected saint's bones were obviously not enough. The next morning, Niet Tian and the others appeared at the Fuer Chamber of Commerce. Sir, Luo Zheng was already waiting for them. He was a little excited to see Niet Tian. Last night, Luo Zheng had been trying to get rid of the corpse Luo curse in his body, but the more he tried, the more violent the corpse Luo curse became. After a whole night of pain, Luo Zheng accepted the fact that only Niet Tian could get rid of the corpse Luo curse. Now that Niet Tian had appeared, of course, he had to perform well. Luo Zheng had arranged everything. Niet Tian and the others were the guards hired by the Fuer Chamber of Commerce, and they were dressed as guards. After some preparation, the Chamber of Commerce set off in a grandiose manner. Niet Tian soon discovered that the dozens of carriages he saw yesterday were all in the caravan, and they were filled with saints' bones. Niet Tian was puzzled. Was the Fuer Chamber of Commerce going to transport these saints' bones to the snowy ice field? The caravan's lineup was huge. There were more than 1,000 carriages, and each carriage was filled with goods. Just the escorts alone numbered in the thousands, and all of them were Heaven Realm martial artists. The Bu-Er Chamber of Commerce is indeed powerful. Just the martial artists escorting the Bu-Er Chamber of Commerce are comparable to a first-rate force in the spatial world, Niet Tian thought to himself. He had a vague guess that the Bu-Er Chamber of Commerce must have a powerful force behind it. After the caravan left Fire Beacon Border City, it headed straight for the snowy ice field. The snowy ice field was located in the extreme north, tens of thousands of miles away from the Shumi world. Along the way, there was a heavy snowstorm. At a glance, there was only a vast glacier in the surroundings. The temperature was very low, and it was as if even the air was frozen. If it wasn't for the powerful martial bodies of martial artists, their entire bodies would have been frozen into ice. In this harsh environment, it was impossible to use flying spirit beasts. Niet Tian could sense that there were many killing formations set up in the surroundings. The guides of the caravan were very familiar with these killing formations, so they were able to avoid the most dangerous areas. Niet Tian speculated that even without a guide, he could still avoid the killing formations, but it would waste a lot of time. The caravan's speed was very slow. After half a month, they finally crossed the ice river. Sir, there is still one more day to go. We will reach the snowy ice field very soon. Luo Zheng came to Niet Tian's side and spoke with a flattering tone. He imagined that once they reached the snowy ice field, Niet Tian would remove the corpse Luo curse seal on his body. Niet Tian only nodded his head and didn't want to pay attention to Luo Zheng. At this moment, he was thinking about how to take away the saint's bone without anyone noticing. Everyone stopped. At this moment, the carriage leading the way suddenly stopped, and a slightly panicked voice rang out. What happened? Luo Zheng's brows tightened as he quickly ran over. Niet Tian suddenly felt that something was wrong. His divine sense spread out, and his expression suddenly sank. He turned to Qiu Shan next to him and said, "Protect Rushi." Yes. Qiu Shan didn't ask any further and only nodded his head. Mr. Niet, what happened? Zhou Xiao and Zhang Chao noticed that something was wrong with Niet Tian's expression, so they nervously asked. Chapter 969. They're coming. Niet Tian abruptly raised his head. Wherever his gaze fell, countless huge snowballs were madly rushing towards him, causing the entire ice surface to shake violently, as if it would collapse at any moment. What are those things? Zhang Chao saw that the huge snowballs were hundreds of meters in size, and their speed was extremely fast. His face couldn't help but turn pale. Mo Rushi also looked a little nervous, but when she saw Niet Tian, her eyes inexplicably became determined. As long as this man was by her side, he would not let any harm come to her. It's a violent polar bear. At this time, a panicked voice sounded. It was very sharp, and it was obvious that the person was quite frightened. Violent polar bear. Nietion's eyes slightly darkened. It turned out that the huge snowballs were actually huge white bears. Feeling the aura of the violent polar bear, Nietion's eyes couldn't help but tremble. Each violent polar bear was hundreds of meters tall, and its whole body was releasing a crystal-clear luster. Under the sunlight, it looked white and dazzling like a white ball of light. Nietion estimated that the violent polar bear should be an 8th-ranked spirit beast, and it should be the strongest among the 8th-ranked spirit beasts. Its battle strength should be stronger than the average Heaven Realm martial artist. The most frightening thing was that there were hundreds and thousands of violent polar bears rushing over from afar. Looking from afar, they looked like huge roaring waves on the surface of the sea. They were sweeping over in an overwhelming manner. Their huge momentum was enough to make one's heart tremble. The people of the Boo Air Caravan had never seen such a scene before, and they were all shocked in an instant. Many of them froze in place, as if they had been petrified. Boom, boom, boom. The loud sound became louder and louder, and the violent polar bears rushed over like a tide. Their roars resounded on the ice field, full of violent and bloody aura. Oh no! Nietion saw that the martial artist leading the way at the front of the caravan was scared out of his wits, and he stood there motionlessly. Nietion's expression changed, and he directly rushed over. Nietion had already noticed that the whole caravan was moving forward under the lead of the martial artist leading the way. If he died, the rest of the journey would be difficult. A dash! The martial artist leading the way finally reacted and shouted in panic. However, a violent polar bear had already rushed over. Its huge body leaped high into the air and pressed down like a small mountain. Its violent aura caused the power of heaven and earth to change. If the violent polar bear's attack landed, the martial artist leading the way would definitely die on the spot. Bang! At this critical moment, a sharp sword light appeared. It was so sharp that it seemed to be able to cut through everything. Bang! Walala! Wherever the sword light passed, a muffled sound could be heard, followed by the sound of flesh being torn apart. The violent polar bear, which was several hundred meters long, could not withstand the huge sword light and was directly cut into two. Go! Nietion landed and roared angrily. Only then did the cultivator leading the way recover from a shock and start running. Nietion made the first move, causing everyone to be stunned. Countless gazes looked at him, their eyes filled with shock. The violent polar bear was an 8th-ranked spirit beast, and its battle prowess far surpassed that of ordinary heaven-tier martial artists. Yet, it had actually been killed by Nietion with a single strike. Just how terrifying was his strength? Roar! 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 However, at this moment, countless violent polar bears pounced over, and they actually chose Nietion as their first target. Damn it! Nietion let out a deep roar as he slashed out with his longsword. The raging sword intent transformed into the most terrifying killing intent, which blasted out with a loud rumble and forced several violent polar bears to retreat. Almost at the same time, countless screams rang out. Many people were directly crushed by the violent polar bears, and the scene became a bloody mess. Nietion had no time to care about the others. He was worried about Mo Rushi's safety, and he retreated quickly. The violent polar bears madly rushed over, and their surging aura pressed down like a tidal wave. Nietion immediately felt that it was difficult to breathe. These violent polar bears were too powerful. When they joined forces, even a peak heaven-tier martial artist would have a hard time dealing with them. Nietion blasted out with his sword and directly killed a violent polar bear. At the same time, he retreated quickly and came to Mo Rushi's side. At this time, the martial artists of the caravan had already tangled with the violent polar bears, and the whole caravan had become a killing ground. Rushi, are you all right? Nietion protected Mo Rushi, and his forehead was covered with sweat. Yes, I'm fine. Mo Rushi felt warm in her heart, and she didn't panic at all. Chioshan, protect her. Nietion saw that the martial artists of the caravan couldn't resist the attacks of the violent polar bears, so he told Chioshan. His figure flashed, and he directly came to Luo Zheng's side. Luo Zheng, what's going on? Nie Tian roared and killed a violent polar bear with a slash of his sword. Their route was not wrong. So how could they encounter so many violent polar bears? Lord Nie Tian, I don't know what's going on either. Luo Zheng looked panicked. The Bu Air caravan had been on this route for decades, and it had always been safe. They had never been attacked by the violent polar bears. Nie Tian saw that Luo Zheng didn't seem to be lying, and his gaze became even more focused. With his strength, he could protect himself no matter how many violent polar bears there were. However, he couldn't protect Imo Rushi and the others. Moreover, he was still concerned about the saint's bone, and he couldn't let it be destroyed by a group of white-haired beasts. At this time, the martial artists of the Bu Air caravan had been completely defeated, and the whole battlefield had turned into a bloody massacre. Bastard! Nie Tian roared, and the aura around his body skyrocketed. Since these white-haired beasts wanted to fight, he would fight with them. He activated the sword of the divine wheel, and a huge sword shadow appeared around Nie Tian. The most terrifying sword will surged within it, and it seemed to be condensing into a solid form. Boom! Nie Tian's figure soared into the sky, and like a wild beast, he directly rushed toward the violent polar bear. In an instant, the sword will surged, and the sword aura overflowed. Nie Tian directly cut down more than a dozen violent bears with his sword. Around him, bloody light filled the air, and the smell of blood was so strong that everything in front of him had turned dark red. While Nie Tian was fighting with the violent polar bear, two figures faintly appeared in the distant sky. It was a young man in a luxurious robe and an old man in a gray robe. Behind them, there were several martial artists in black, who seemed to be guards. Elders sang, "That silver-haired martial artist is a bit strange. Kill him." The young man in luxurious robe stared at Nie Tian from afar, and he said calmly, with a playful smile on his face, "Yes." The old man called Elder Sang nodded solemnly. His body shook slightly, and an invisible sound wave was released from his body, shrouding the violent polar bear. On the other side, the violent polar bear, who was fighting with all its might, seemed to have heard some kind of call, and it suddenly froze. In the next moment, the eyes of all the violent polar bears turned red, and their aura became violet. They all rushed toward Nie Tian.